Welcome to the 2026 Navy All-American Bowl. I am Tom Loy alongside National Analyst Blair Angulo and Director of Scouting Andrew Ivins. Fellas, it's one of the best weeks of the year. We are in San Antonio. We'll be here all week. Let's just get it started, man. We got so many guys here from all across the country, all across the world. Big picture. Ivins, we'll start with you. What's one of your big takeaways? What are you looking forward to this week?
5 stars, Tom, right? We got one final rankings update when it comes to the class of 2026. I've been talking so much about the 2027s. We've already kind of shifted gears into that. But, hey, final kind of data point for these guys. We were at the Under Armour game last week. Blair will be out at the Poly Bowl here next week, and then these rankings are going to go final. So we love the 32 we have at the top, right? That mirrors the first round of the NFL draft. But I do think there is potentially going to be some movement, right? Some final, getting guys in order how we want. So, Chris Henry, kind of the story of the early signing period. Well, he's supposed to be here, the Mater Dei wide receiver. Does he stick with a 5-star? You got 5-star cornerback Danny Odom. We're a big outlier on him. We love what he did as a senior there at the Orlando First Academy, signed with Nebraska. We think he's the real deal. How does he look against an elite group of pass catchers? So I think it starts with the 5 stars and then other potential risers. Who's going to move up the board? It's a mix of seniors and juniors for the second year in a row, kind of a 50-50 split. And I think that's going to yield a ton of competition, not only in practices, but Saturday inside the Alamo Dome. And why should you be watching the game? Hey, Coy Parrish, he's in the transfer portal. Everyone wants him. 2 years ago, boys, he was the MVP of this game.
The other thing I think that stands out to us about this competitive setting is being able to find out guys that are ready to take the next step at the next level and to compete early on. I think of a Spencer Fano a few years ago, who's now projected to be a first-round NFL draft pick, and kind of came into this week as kind of a virtual unknown because he was playing some obscure competition out in the state of Utah, comes out in a national setting like this and really stamps himself as that top-tier offensive tackle. Then the rest is history, right? He goes straight to Utah, starts at right tackle from day one, and is now projected to be a number 1 pick. A guy like Jeremiah Smith a few years ago, who I don't remember, Andrew, if we've ever seen a player go as hard rep to rep and the compete level off of, just off the charts in an all-star setting where it's not super intense. It's more relaxed. It's kind of, half speed, but you couldn't tell that to Jeremiah Smith. And so when you see that in this setting against other all-stars, you really kind of start to see the alphas separate themselves from a pack of alphas. And that's the fun part of it for me when we gather all these stars in one place.
I tell the story all the time, right? Hey, Jeremiah Smith, all these kids, hey, I'm going to opt out. I don't want to compete. My agent's not telling me to. Jeremiah Smith, 2 days before he started classes as a true freshman at Ohio State, he was in San Antonio, caught a touchdown pass. The next morning, I'm waiting at the team hotel. He's next to me. He's about to get in his Uber, and he heads off to Ohio State. And look at him now, what he's been able to do in 2 years there in Columbus. So, yeah, you're right, Blair. Very good indicator of, all right, what guys can come in and contribute year one and be kind of cornerstones of those rosters, help them get college football playoff berths. And I think there's a lot of guys that are going to have the opportunity to showcase that here over the next few days.
For me, I would just add that the quarterbacks to what I'm going to be focusing on. I just love the position, and I love the group that we put together. Really, Andrew, you put together. I mean, you got guys like Briggs Cherry. I've seen a million times there in the state of Tennessee, heading to Louisville, a guy that I'm really excited about. But you got Corey Daly, I would say an unknown to a lot of guys in the national landscape, headed to Pittsburgh. First saw him in Nashville at an Under Armour event and just really, really impressed by everything he brings to the table. Will Menzel, a guy, late ad that you guys I know a lot about and very excited about him. A 2027 kid. Another 2027 is Malachi Ziegler, headed to SMU. So, and then we got Carson White at 2027, and then Peter Bork at 2027, headed to Michigan. So a nice blend of underclassmen in 2026s as well. But I think we were talking about this last night, how polished this group of quarterbacks is. I think that they're going to bring a lot of value to the game. So just a really good group there. But moving ahead, give me maybe a guy on both sides of the ball that you're really excited about to see, whether it's a case of not being able to see him in person at this time. Somebody that really pops for you, maybe a guy not necessarily on the West Coast for you, but just who are two guys, maybe one on each side of the ball that really you're excited about this week, Ivan?
I'm going to give you a pair of edge rushers, and we've been really high on them at 24/7 Sports for a long time. Tristan Givens, the edge rusher, signed with Texas A&M. Hey, the Aggies, they had a pretty nice graphic there on Instagram. Cool. They got 6 signees, I believe, driving over today for check-in. Guy we love on tape, explosive takeoffs. Kind of reminds me of James Pierce at Tennessee. The folks there in College Station are very excited, but he's never been in a best-on-best setting. He wasn't a guy that was on the camp circuits. We're going to get him here. We're going to get him in some one-on-ones, right? And is he a guy that he's as good as we think he could be, right? He's got all the physical specs, all the measurements, all that. Played a lot of, wing T, triple option offenses in high school. I want to see him pin his earbacks and get after the quarterback. The other guy, Trenton Henderson, Tom, and I know you were in Pensacola. Everyone thinks that's in my backyard. That's like 5 hours away. Signs with LSU, right? Retained by Lane Kiffin and that staff. How does he look in this type of setting, right? Because LSU, that roster is going through a transition. And, hey, look, these pass rushers, these edge players, they come with a high price tag in the transfer portal. So you want to get them very early and get them in the building out of high school, get them on the deal, the terms that you want. So those are two, I think, on defense. And then flipping over to offense, there's only 2 tight ends here this week, right? We made that decision, me, Eric Richards, at the Navy All-American Bowl. In the past, we've had 4 tight ends. We've had 6 tight ends. No, there's just 2 tight ends here. And the one I want to talk about is Ahmad Hudson, our number 1 ranked tight end in the class of 2027. As we turn the page to that cycle, that'll be in focus. Ahmad Hudson he's the biggest freak, I think, in the class. This is legitimately a 5-star football recruit, and he is a 5-star basketball recruit. And yes, he is going to play both sports in college. I believe on the EYBL circuit this summer, he led it in dunks, and he played less games than anyone else. He is a legit basketball player. Tom, we saw him at Nebraska this past summer, 6'6", 250 pounds. Usually when you have these game-breaking tight ends that can stretch the field, they're primarily wide receivers in high school. They split them out wide. That is not Ahmad Hudson. He does some inline work. So I think as the week progresses, Ahmad Hudson's going to be a storyline. And Tom, you just wrote, hey, there's 2 schools set to get visits when he leaves here.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of buzz, obviously, around LSU, but I think Nebraska, Texas A&M, they're going to get him on campus here to wrap up the month. There's a lot of buzz around Nebraska, man. I think a lot of the fans in Louisiana are kind of skeptical about it. They're like, no, like he's too pro Nebraska publicly. There's no way they get it done. But I'm telling you, that relationship with Matt Rule, with 2027 top 100 quarterback Trey Taylor, who's already headed to Nebraska, it's very real. Do not rule out A&M. I think they're in a really good spot as well. So, Blair, both sides of the ball, who are you excited to watch?
Drew mentioned the edge rushers. I want to talk about a player who's going to be trying to prevent them from getting into the backfield. That's Malachi Lee, and that's because he's more of an anomaly than anything. All the way out in Hawaii, playing at Kamehameha School, and even when I've gone out there for showcases and camps, this is a player we haven't really gotten to see in person. So how quickly can he acclimate to this competitive setting? He doesn't get to match up against some of these premier edge rushers out on the island. Committed to Michigan, signed with Michigan, is not set to early enroll. But, I brought up the name Spencer Fano earlier. That Utah staff now in Ann Arbor, including offensive line coach Jim Harding, not afraid to play freshmen early on. Spencer Fano, Caleb Lomu, those types of players see the field early on for him if they're ready. I want to know if Malachi Lee is ready. That's a player that we've heard for the longest time in Polynesian circles, maybe the most talented and gifted offensive tackle since Penei Sewell out west, just based on his measurables, his athleticism. But this is a different level of physicality that maybe he's not used to. So I'm excited to see what he's able to do on the offensive side of the ball. The defender that I'm most excited to track this week is Brandon Arrington. Remember, this is a player, early 5-star buzz, a lot of upside, oozes potential, one of the fastest players in the country, long, rangy corner. We've seen those translate to the SEC level as true freshmen. DJ Pickett over at LSU. You got Dejon Lee at Alabama, a number of other players that were able to see the field early on. I know A&M has an embarrassment of riches in the secondary, but can Brandon Arrington go into College Station and carve out a role for himself early on at the next level against SEC competition? We know he's got the speed. We've heard he's a bit raw, and he's still got a lot of work to do. This is a big first step for him to kind of start proving himself heading into college.
For me, I'm going to go with Jahide Brown, a guy that I was lucky enough to invite to the game, 2027 wide receiver. A handful of schools still in play, but I have not been able to see him in person yet. But the kid out of Kentucky is, you watch the tape, I've heard a bunch of buzz. I've talked to coaches that have seen him multiple times, and there's just something about this kid that he's so electric with the ball in his hands, and he had a great junior season. Really excited to see what he does this week against some of the best players, obviously, in America on the defense side of the ball. And then on defense, it's a guy that I've been raving about for a while, and a lot of it's just simply watching the tape and then also talking to college coaches that I respect in this profession is Braden Rouse, top 247 linebacker that signed with Tennessee. There's just something about that kid. A lot of coaches call him a future first-round pick, whatever the case may be. Our ranking is super high on that kid, but he's a guy that I want to see good on good, best of the best, and see kind of how he translates, especially this week. But looking at this week as a whole, Ivans, just to kind of, not to put you on the spot here, but this is the elite of the elite. When you're looking at this week from an evaluation standpoint, because I know everything matters to you. You're not just watching tape. You're watching full game. You are getting to know these kids away from the field. You are looking at so many factors. When it comes down to the rankings side of it, how much does this week matter to you this close to these guys getting to college?
Well, I think it matters a lot. And I think you look at the 2026 rankings, right? We just mentioned, hey, those are going to go final. Scroll through the 5 stars. A lot of those guys participated in this game as juniors, right? And we had full, what I would call kind of evaluations on them, right? So, they tested on the spring camp circuit. They played their junior season. They played their senior season. We already saw them, in this type of competitive environment. And is this the end all be all, right? No, absolutely not. But we take it into account. We brought up the Jeremiah Smith example. How about TJ Moore, the Clemson wide receiver? He was a guy that showed up as a 4-star recruit, finished as a 5-star recruit. Xavier Brown at Alabama, right? One of the top cornerbacks in the SEC, same thing, showed up as a 4-star recruit, left as a 5-star recruit. So usually the cream rises to the top. And I think what's unique about the Navy All-American Bowl, it's not a Pro Bowl out here, right? There's no water balloon fights. There's no someone on the microphone, calling out different DJs and all that stuff. I mean, these guys lace it up and they compete. And I think it really on Wednesday, it gets ramped up with that joint practice. And those are when the real kind of alphas show. And I think what's also unique about this type of setting is you got all this talent in one place, right? And these kids know each other. We're in the social media age. Everyone's on the phones. It doesn't take long for them to separate, all right, do I belong here or do I not? And so it's interesting to see who taps out and who keeps kind of competing. And we can learn a lot of questions or we can get a lot of answers to the question.
I want to go back to just this roster as a whole and look at immediate impact. We obviously knew you, especially Ivans, Jeremiah Smith, a day one contributor. We've seen so many guys across the country that play right away. Looking at this roster as a whole, is there anybody that you think could be really a household name potentially next year on either side of the ball?
Yeah, the wide receivers, I think that is the pass catchers because I want to put Ahmad Hudson in that group. I think that last year it was all about the big boys up front, and we've had some offensive linemen come through already. I think that trend continues. We had measurements here on your guy Malachi Lee. We've been waiting for them. Malachi Lee, big dude, 6'0", 7'2", 349, 35 and a half arms, 84.
You look at him there, and I think he's physically. He looks like he's ready to play in the Big Ten. It's a demanding conference, especially up front in the trenches. And like I mentioned, Jim Harding is not afraid to play those guys early on. So when you're thinking about a reshifted and a refocused Ann Arbor, Michigan team, you look at a player like that who's going to be able to have the physical traits like you just touched on to see the field right away.
So big boys were the story last year. I think it's the pass catchers, right? We've talked about. I mean, us three were down in Fort Lauderdale on signing day, the Matter Day duo of Chris Henry. But how about Caden Dixon-Wyatt and flips from Ohio State to USC? I mean, we've gone, 15 minutes? We haven't talked about the Trojans have seven signees here, right? Number 1 ranked class. We're going to get a lot of USC, victory signs this week here in San Antonio. And to me, Caden Dixon-Wyatt, the player comp has long been Carnell Tate. You think about what's going on there in Los Angeles. Mekhi Lemon's going to go off to the NFL draft. Jacoby Lane's going to go off to the NFL draft. They bring back Tanook Hines. We know Chad Bowden. We know Lincoln Riley, Max Steinecker. We know those guys are working on adding talent via the transfer portal. But to me, I think Caden Dixon-Wyatt is a guy that is going to have an opportunity to contribute in year one. Same thing goes with some of these defenders for the Trojans. Luke Wafel is here out of New Jersey. This is a huge week for him. Another guy, haven't seen him in a best-on-best setting. 23 sacks as a senior. That was a school record for the Hun school. It reminds me of Jack Sawyer, big force-based edge rusher, right? He finds energy late, gets to the quarterback, big, powerful individual. And then Jamian Winfield, he's ranked super high for us. Don't think he's really talked a lot about on a national scale. More of an interior option, tons of upfield charge. I know the folks in Los Angeles are really excited about him. So those three off the hook for me. We can go in a ton of different directions. You mentioned Briggs Cherry there at Louisville. I know they just got Lincoln Kineholz. Jeff Brom usually leans on the transfers. But I think out of all these senior quarterbacks, Briggs Cherry, physically, he's ready to go. Excellent here over the past 2 seasons, 24-1 record at the Baylor school, completed over 70% of his passes as a senior. So, yeah, Lincoln Kineholz is likely going to be the guy. But to me, how often are you guys watching college football and that number 2 quarterback's on the field? I think Briggs Cherry's one as well.
Yeah, is there anybody that you think?
I did want to tack on a little bit on USC and what Ivans was talking about there, because Caden Dixon-Wyatt and all the accolades that he had. Well, plays in the Trinity League. Who was the Trinity League MVP this year is another USC signee, Trent Mosley. I know he's a little older, but he's experienced. He's dealt with some injuries, but what he was able to do this season
in the playoffs
and just kind of willing that Santa Margarita team to a state championship. You think about a lot of the similarities in what he's able to bring on the field, and they're going to have to need to fill that Mekhi Lemon, the Biletnikoff Award winner, a lot of the void that he leaves behind. I think a player like Trent Mosley fills a lot of those gaps. And then the run game too. I mean, I think we're forgetting that they were really thin there at running back. They had to play some walk-ons, King Miller, a couple other players that maybe were trying to will them through some games in the run game. And Deshaun Rideau is here, one of the more explosive, shifty running backs, a bit smaller, but I think will be able to carve out a nice role for himself at USC early on. And I think those two, on top of some of the other names that Ivans just brought up, it makes for a lot of instant impact potential for a USC offense that does have to replace a Mekhi Lemon, does have to replace a Jacoby Lane. There's going to be a lot of opportunities there.
You guys mentioned that there's 7 guys here from USC. I know we're kind of getting a little off from where we initially were, but that's the show. That's how it's going to be, especially with guys coming in and out all day long. One guy we didn't mention yet was Brandon Lockhart. You mentioned there's 7 guys going to be here headed to USC. He's a guy that like a couple years ago I saw on the 7-on-7 circuit, was really impressed, physically long, athletic, did all these great things. But as it stands now, what are some of your guys' thoughts on the cornerback headed to USC?
He's got to prove it this week, right? And the way it works for us in these evaluator chairs, we're juggling 3 cycles at a time. And I think what a lot of people don't understand is, we'll come out with the initial rankings for a cycle after the freshman seasons, and guys are going to trickle down because the rest of the field catches them, right? And, that's just kind of the nature of the beast. We get more data points, we get more evaluation points. I mean, there are some cornerbacks around the country that didn't play varsity as a freshman. They got bigger, faster, and stronger. I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking about 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds. Everyone's on a different timeline. So Brandon Lockhart, he's got some tools. I thought he did some nice things as a senior. Do I like him as much as the senior tape compared to some of the other corners ahead of him? No. But, does my opinion change when we get into the one-on-one sessions, when we get into the 7-on-7, when we see him Saturday on NBC in the Alamo Dome. So I think it's a really big week for him, just to kind of remind us of why we liked him so much early on.
He's been like a camp darling. He was, I think, he emerged on the spotlight at the National Combine a couple years ago. Was probably one of the headliners in that combine. I did get to see him in person at Sierra Canyon this season. Really physical, and I think for the longest time we thought of him as this finesse cornerback. I think he's continued to grow and fill out. And as you guys know, in the college football game now, you need those versatile defensive backs that can line up in the slot, can line up at safety if you need him to, interchangeable different positions. He's got a physical prototype that kind of gives them the variability to do a lot of different things. So if you need him to be a run support type of run stuffer, I think he can do that because he is a lot more physical than maybe he was early on in his high school career. So echoing what Andrew just said, I think this week is going to be important to see where he is on that scale, whether or not he's got the ability to go to campus and really, compete for a secondary role, which, needs bodies right now.
Yeah, this week can be an absolute reality check. It can be an eye-opener, and you can get exposed, or you can get that exposure that you are an absolute dude because you've gone against the best of the best. So it'll be very interesting. I want to ask, I know a lot of people want to know, like, hey, who's the first off the bus guy? That's like a real popular topic. You get bring these guys walk in here. We're talking about Malachi Lee being an absolute freak. He's a monster. He looks like you said he could play right away for Michigan. Of that note, got a text here from our very own Chris Trevino, covers USC. And Malachi actually told him he is completely locked in with Michigan as we were interviewing him. So that's obviously a big deal. But going to the first off the bus thing, we already talked about Malachi Lee. But as we write that story later that you can expect from, I think Gabe Brooks is going to be putting it together. But who are a couple guys that just call your shot a little early? Who do you think could find themselves on that list?
You want me to give you the answers to the test?
To the test right
well, you
now.
haven't even studied it.
Is there? But like, if you were to guess, though, is there anybody do you think? Like for me, I'll take one. Luke Wafel. He's a guy that I've seen a couple times in person. He's rocked up. He's physically put together. I know you could have guessed Malachi Lee would have been on there, especially you, Blair. But is there a guy that you would call your shot and maybe think that a couple hours from now he's going to be on that list?
Claude Mpumba, top 247 offensive tackle out of the state of Illinois. I mean, this is a kid that came to America. I think he speaks 4 or 5 different languages. I was hoping to kind of maybe we can get him up on here, but listed 6'5", 330 pounds, wears it extremely well. And for Nebraska, the Cornhuskers, you got to scroll down that recruiting class ranking. They've pushed all their chips in for the class of 2027. That's why they're involved with a guy like Ahmad Hudson. But they got Claude Mpumba here, and they got Danny Odom. And both those guys, to me, height, weight, speed prospects, guys that are physically have what it takes to play in the Big Ten, which is a line of scrimmage league. And Tom, just at the Under Armour game, and one of my big takeaways so far, and I think it's going to translate here. There's only one Oregon signee here, but man, Dan Lanning in Oregon, right? I know they're in the semifinals here later this week. They might have the largest recruiting class that I've ever seen. Jet Washington, 5-star safety, he was in Orlando. Manny Iheanacho, 5-star offensive lineman, he was in Orlando. We got top 247 safety, Devin Jackson. He's here in San Antonio. I mean, you look at him, 6'2", 205 pounds, but man, he can run, he can trigger, he can come downhill. So I think, Oregon, what they're doing from that height, weight, speed, and then you see these other teams in the league which realize, hey, I got to go to Iowa. I got to win in the rain, okay? I got to go play a cold weather game against Illinois. We got to be big and physical up front. I think what Nebraska is doing with a guy like Claude Mpumba really stands out to me.
Couple receivers that have really impressed me physically. Jaden Petit, who's headed to Oklahoma. I think we saw him at the Elite 11 finals last summer as one of those pass catchers. And I think I remember seeing him and be physically imposing. Tristen Keys, I think we're forgetting that he's
30 minutes in, just talked about Tristen Keys.
He's kind of a freak. And then I touched on Brandon Arrington. I know you're a big nickname guy. Dash is his nickname, right? Because of the track background, world-class speed.
Right. Beat Noah Lyles in a few meet records, I believe.
But he he looks like a pterodactyl. His wingspan, I think, is going to be off the charts whenever he goes to that station. I think he's going to be one of those guys that first off the bus is just kind of looks the part of one of those prototypical SEC corners.
With Arrington, where, because I mean, there's talk about safety, corner, receiver. Where do you guys see him best projecting at the next level, because he is an absolute freak?
I think he's a corner all the way. That linear speed. He's got the ability to kind of shake and wiggle with some receivers if he needs to downfield. Still needs to improve a little bit on the physicality front, right? Within those first 5-10 yards, being physical, bodying up, making sure he's making tackles in open field. The catch point attack and how he's able to combat the football downfield is a work in progress. As a receiver, he's been just blowing by defenders for his whole life, right? So it's been kind of easy just to kind of go and over the shoulder catch everything. But I think he's, without a doubt, one of the highest upside players in this class. Now it's just about him being able to put it all together. And, I had a source at A&M who told me, hey, like, this is a player who we're going to have to, like, really coach up, right? It was a high-profile recruiting battle, Alabama, USC, Oregon, schools like that, blue blood programs. And you kind of get caught up in a recruiting battle that stretches into, like, the unreal in a sense of, like, you start to stamp this guy as a no-doubter, but there's a lot of raw tools there that I think still need to be unearthed. And so for a player like him, although he has been focusing on receivers, been focusing on different parts of his game, been a track athlete, part-time, now that he's going to be fully focused on football heading into the spring and then obviously doing some track stuff, I think corner is going to be the long-term play for him.
I think he's a corner all the way. I think right now listed as an athlete in the rankings. Like you said, I think there was a case you could made, hey, potentially wide receiver. But I'll say this about Brandon Arrington. I thought his senior stuff, he was much further along than I anticipated. And I know people are going to bring up, all right, well, he's not a 5-star prospect anymore. Hey, there's only 32 of them. Yeah, we got a second-round grade on him. And I think to Blair's point, these pterodactyl-like cornerbacks, they are hitting right now in college football. Dijon Lee, DJ Pickett, these guys that are big and can move and can run, everyone wants them, and they're pushing them on the field.
I want to talk about, and we got a lot of guys trickling in here, so we'll probably pivot here shortly. We got Louisville signee, Briggs Cherry, quarterback. We got Joel Wyatt, do-it-all athlete, headed to Tennessee. A bunch of guys in here right now. We'll get some guys on here shortly, but I want to talk about the fact that on Saturday at the 2026 Navy All-American Bowl on NBC, there will be 10 commitments at that time. So I kind of want to go through them a little bit, talk a little bit about where their recruitment stands, but also really dive into, like, what kind of player that one of these schools might be getting on Saturday. So let's start with a guy you both know really well, top 247 cornerback Aaron Washington, at a 2027 player. Blair, why don't you give us a quick update on the recruitment, and then Ivans give us a little bit about the player.
Yeah, a player that's going to have a few hats on the table. Right now, USC has a lot of the buzz, a lot of the momentum. Ohio State's been in the mix. He likes Alabama. He likes Oregon, Nebraska, Washington, some of those schools that have been making him a priority. I just feel like, based on conversations that I've had, is that the Trojans never really eased up on recruiting him. He is a player who's been dealing with a lower leg injury for most of the year. He suffered it during track season. His nickname is J.O. based on his background in the Junior Olympics. So I think the fact that USC was super persistent and still stayed consistent in recruiting him has really carried them to the forefront of his recruitment right now, heading into this announcement. So I like where the Trojans are headed, and this could be their first monumental pickup in the 2027 class. Remember, USC signed the number 1 class in 2026. Would be a nice little piece to begin things off in 27.
I kind of like just jump in there, right? If Aaron Washington does throw, USC fight on Saturday, USC, this isn't going to be a big class for them. And I think this is where college football is trending. USC, first non-SEC team to sign a number 1 ranked class since Miami back in 2008, right? 35 different signees. I said it, 7 of them are here. Well, you're not going to be able to take 35 every year. And I think what we're going to see is these teams kind of, all right, foundational class, cycle, a little bit smaller, transfers, and every 3 or 4 years they're going to take these monster groups. So for USC, it can be a bit smaller in 2027. And to me, Arian Washington, a few different things. Number one, I think he has the potential to be one of the top nickels in the class. I think he's got natural coverage instincts. I loved him on tape as a sophomore. Unfortunate that he got the injury, but this guy sees it extremely well. He is sticky. He is physical. 3 interceptions as a sophomore in the Trinity League, playing in a loaded Mater Dei secondary. If I was at college, I'd be betting on the Mater Dei kids right now, right? The two programs I'd look at for DBs, Mater Dei in LA, and then American Heritage down in Fort Lauderdale. Those guys seem to always hit right now. And then for USC, if they do fend off, Alabama, Ohio State, Nebraska, and Washington, this is the new USC, right? With Chad Bowden. They are not allowing these local kids, all of them, to just leave and go to an Oregon, to go to an Alabama. They're kind of putting that fence up. So I think it'd be a statement for them. I'm excited to see J.O. here kind of work and compete, because he's a guy that I think, very high ceiling and someone that can be a difference maker in one of these, Big 2 conferences.
Blair, another announcement on Saturday is another guy really well out of California, top 247 linebacker, Taven Epps, one-time Texas commit. Where do things stand with this process heading in a couple days from announcement?
Well, he might be going from throwing the horns up to throwing the horns down here very shortly. The tide really shifted in his recruiting process once he started to take some game visits, committed to Texas early in the process, then started to hit the road and maybe started to see other schools and see where he fits. I mean, when you think about the Brent Venables defense and the surge that they've had on the field and the bounce back that they had in the SEC, making it to the playoff, all those things are super appealing. Notre Dame's involved, USC's involved, Georgia is involved, all schools that he really feels comfortable with. But right now the crystal ball points to the Sooners potentially flipping a player from a rival program. I like the Sooners heading into this announcement.
Man, 2 commitments. He's still got a year to go there for Taven Epps. I think the scouting report, multi-dimensional linebacker. I think you can play him on the ball. I think you can play him off the ball. I thought him forward-facing is the strength of his game. Strong, angular player, gets guys on the ground. He's a plus athlete for the position. And I think for us on the scouting side of things, trying to really pigeon him into a role coming out of the week. That's what we want to know. He's done a little bit of everything in high school. Is he an edge guy? Is he a Sam? Is he potential Mike? I think that's the question we want to know with him. But one of these guys that makes plays, and he consistently does it on Friday nights.
Awesome. I want to go ahead and, Blair, we'll swap you out here. And we are going to bring on Louisville signee quarterback Briggs Cherry. He good to go? Briggs, you're good. Take a seat. My man. Good to see you as always. Andrew Ivins.
Briggs, what's up, man? How we doing?
Doing good.
Briggs, all right. We had you. Your journey's been pretty fun. I'm not going to lie. Ivan saw you early in the process, and he was the first one to say you've gotten better and better. We look back at the junior film, then you really have a great performance at the sevens in the offseason, and then you kind of just hit this rocket ship leading to a state title, Elite 11 performance, all of that stuff. But what's the last 12 months been like for you leading up to your eventual signature with the Louisville Cardinals?
It's just been work. Like at the beginning, I was an underdog, and I'll say that I had a few bad performances early because I was injured. My sophomore year, I hurt my ankle, and I probably should have stayed in, but I decided to go out. But just the past 12 months, it's been wild. Going to Elite 11, playing with 2 of the biggest 7-on-7 teams, and then winning a state title. I feel like I've proved my point of that I can play with the best, and we see that now that I'm here with the best players in the country.
We were just talking about potential guys that could be impact guys day one, and Andrew mentioned you as a guy at Louisville. I know they just picked up Lincoln Keenholz. What are your expectations for year one when you get there?
Just go in, learn the playbook. Me and Lincoln are going to push each other to be better and just be a leader of the team and work hard.
Briggs, go back to the recruiting process for us. I mean, to me, a guy that watches the tape, obviously had a chance to see you at the Elite 11 finals. I think your game fits Jeff Brom so well. I mean, you go through his track record of quarterbacks. I think at one point this NFL season, he had 5 guys that played for him in the league. But to me, you see the game so well. Is Jeff kind of one of the big reasons why I would have to assume you're headed to the Derby City?
100%. You know, Coach Brown, both of them are big quarterback guys, and that was a big part of me committing there is their commitment to their quarterbacks and development. And I just feel like if I get there and give him time to let me develop, he's going to put me into a really good player.
Probably starting classes here in a few days, but I do know that there were some schools that came at you down the stretch. Take us behind the scenes, peel it back there. You can say whatever happened now. Who was involved? How hard was it?
So throughout spring ball, it was big. Ohio State was coming at me. That was big, you know. And then on the day before signing day, I get a text from Georgia because Curtis flipped. Yep. So Georgia texts me talking about, Briggs, I really like your game. I was like, you're a little late, but you know, I stick with my guys at Louisville. I feel like that's my home. And you just talk about classes. Classes start today. Actually, I was supposed to move in today, but now I get to move in next Monday. Which is fun.
Hey, thank you, Coach Brom, for allowing you to compete.
Thank you for letting me come.
And you mentioned, I mean, I saw you at that regional in Ohio. We can pull up the footage if you want. It wasn't good.
That wasn't.
You know. Just how surreal is it for you to go from a guy that, you know, we had a mid 3-star grade on, and then, you know, you go 24-1 over the past 2 seasons. You win a state championship. You're a semifinalist for Mr. Football in Tennessee. Now you're going to cap off your prep career here. That has to feel a bit surreal for you.
No, it's a blessing for sure. Like I said, you know, I probably shouldn't have went out that performance, but, you know, me and my dad made a decision to go, and at the end of the day, it wasn't a good one, but that writes my story, you know. I wouldn't be who I am without that one bad performance, and just letting me come back and go to the same Elite 11 regional and get invited to the finals and go to the finals. Now come here. It's just all a blessing.
These all-star games, it used to be a big thing, like peer recruiting. You know, a lot of these guys are signed, but there are 43 juniors here. Most of them have not made their decision. Is there anyone that you're trying to maybe work in the Adidas lounge over there? You got your eye on anyone?
You know, that's not a certain name, but I would say pitch to all of them. I mean, Louisville was the best spot. If you a receiver and want to get the ball, defense, you know, we're going to put people on their backs. Louisville's a spot.
I want to give a little love to that staff there at Louisville. Obviously, Jeff Brom gets a bunch of the credit. It's kind of like, if you pick Georgia, it's because of Kirby Smart. You pick Notre Dame, it's because of Marcus Freeman. But like behind the scenes, like who was a guy that really made an impact on you and made you feel comfortable, both as a player, showed you a lot of love, but also made you feel comfortable. Like, man, I'm actually going to enjoy being at Louisville outside of just football.
Brian Brom, you know, the quarterback coach. Yeah. He came and saw my family a few times. We went and ate dinner together after one of the spring practices, you know, and he was the main one who got me like, this is my place. And then also Coach Pete Notcha, who just went to Kentucky, but that's my guy, you know. We were a really good family. Like, he talked to my dad almost every week, just talking him through stuff, and I feel like that was what made me choose it.
Yeah, Pete was fired up when that one got done. I was working with Clara Sales, who's behind the camera, on some fun kind of questions here. Do you have a go-to pregame song, like week in and week out, that's like, I got to have that on?
No, just like any raw wave, something calm.
Okay. By the way, how's the golf game? I saw you're doing some stuff on YouTube. I wasn't all that impressed. I want to make that very clear.
No, I like playing, but I'm not very good.
We'll have to go play sometime. What was your most enjoyable, outside of Louisville, because that's an obvious one, what was your most enjoyable game day visit you ever took?
Probably Tennessee. You know, the atmosphere there is different. It's a fun place to play.
Yeah. If you weren't playing football, what would you be dominating at, like sport-wise? I know it's not golf, but what would you be? Where do you think you could be like a high-level athlete, or even if it's like a game?
I'd probably say baseball. Growing up, I was always a big baseball player. You know, I never hit the best, but I was a really good infielder. I probably could now. I was little back then.
And then we got the college football semifinals set. Miami versus Ole Miss. What's your prediction there?
Ole Miss. Miami got a really good D-line, but Trinidad going crazy right now.
Yeah. I don't know how these rosters are kind of constructed, but Miami has 2 pass rushers here, so
they are.
And it's funny, like everybody says, like everybody's betting against Miami, and yet Miami continues to step up. The other one is Oregon versus Indiana, the number 1 team in the country. Who do you got in that one?
I definitely have Indiana. Between right now, you know, Fernando, he's going dumb. So
who wins the whole thing?
Indiana.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Look, Louisville signee quarterback Briggs Cherry. Appreciate your time. Congrats. Thanks for being here, man.
Yeah,
Appreciate
man.
you.
Excited to see you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun week, man. Thank you again.
Hey, Louisville, good news in the
Yeah.
transfer portal. Isaac Brown,
Staying.
it's retained.
Yeah, that's
retained.
big because everybody said he was trending away. And then, so let's just talk about Briggs a little bit here. What you were the first person to say, like, hey, there's a long way to go. He would admit it because I told him, I said, hey, didn't really love that Elite 11 footage. And he said he was banged up. And he said, like, that was a terrible performance by me. So kudos to you for spotting it. But you were also the first one to say, like, this kid has grown tremendously. So what is Louisville getting in Briggs Cherry?
Yeah, I think he's a full field reader, right? And I think the big thing with Briggs is going to be his ability to navigate dirty pockets. And if you look at him at the Baylor school, 2 Power 4 tackles were protecting him there. And he was throwing a lot of talent. So if Louisville can keep the pocket clean, I think this is a guy that in a Jeff Brom offense, they're going to get the most out of him. They're going to scheme it up. So I love the fit. And like I said, Tom, I wouldn't be surprised if, there's at some point, in 2026, we see him in there on the field.
All right, we got top 247 linebacker Kenneth Simon here, one of the best players in the 2027 class, right there in my backyard in the Nashville area. Kenneth, good to see you. This is Andrew Ivins, the director of scouting.
The nugget here, Dad played in the game, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he was one of the highest ranked players coming out of high school. He was a U.S. Army All-American back in the day. He made sure to tell me that a couple weeks ago, which was awesome to see you kind of follow in footsteps. So just what's that mean like to just be here, basically doing the same thing he did?
Yeah, everybody wants to make their parents proud, and I feel like that's something I've done, and being able to see a smile on his face after I succeed, it makes me really happy.
How was the junior season? I know I was there at the state title game. It was a tough finish, fell just short, but man, what an incredible performance there by Brentwood Academy as a whole. How personally did things go for you this year?
Yeah, I would say I played good. I feel like I did my thing. I played good sophomore year. I feel like I picked it up even more this year. I got to rush off the edge some for the first time, and ended up working, and I was pretty good at it. But I feel like we played good. The team played good overall. The state, I wish we could have pulled out of that at the end, but we'll get it next year.
That was an incredible game. The weather was horrible. I was comfortably in the press box at the time, but you guys weren't. But as a player, I know that there's been early on, it was like, oh, this guy's a safety to know, and then he became a linebacker to know, and then I saw you rushing off the edge a ton. Where do you see, and especially talking to the college coaches, we'll get to your recruiting process here shortly, but as you talk to the coaches, you see yourself, where do you see yourself contributing, maybe even year one, a year from now at the college level?
I feel I can do a lot of things. My speed off the edge is really hard to touch, especially with the offensive tackles that big. I feel like my reaction, my instincts, inside linebacker is really good, and then I'm fast enough to keep up with the receivers. So, just wherever they put me and wherever I'm at, I'm going to make plays. I'm going to do what I need to do.
I love the self-scouting report. Give us, who are you studying, right? Because you are kind of what these new age defenses want to do. You can do a little bit of everything. So who are some guys you'd like to watch, whether it be at the college level or on Sundays in the NFL?
Yeah, I like to watch Jalen Ramsey a lot, especially him coming from Brentwood Academy. I study his film a lot. Fred Warner, I like to watch him just talk about film and go over everything. And then also I watch Ed Reed some. He's really smart. And I'll go watch his interviews or watch him talk about film, and it helps me a lot.
Tweener, I think would be the term. That used to be a negative, but are you okay with the tweener label right now?
That's cool.
Okay. Tom's going to ask you about the recruitment. I'm going to ask you about it. What are these schools saying when, they kind of get you on the whiteboard if we've gotten to that point, but are they saying Mike linebacker? Are they saying safety? Are they saying potential edge rusher? I mean, what have you heard to date? Because you've been to a lot of programs that are very good on the defensive side of the ball, that use a lot of personnel on the defensive side of the ball, and a lot of programs where those positional lines continue to blur.
Yeah, so a lot of the schools said they want me to play early downs, they want me inside the box, and then late downs coming off the edge, which I feel like that'd be really good, getting after quarterback in his face that last down.
3-down backer.
We got your recruitment here. I know you narrowed it down. You were initially going to do a top 5. You ended up doing a top 8. It also looks better on social media is what I heard. Tennessee, A&M, Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, North Carolina, Notre Dame, Alabama, and Florida. Is that still the top 8? Has anybody been added or dropped at that point?
I would say that's still the top 8. That's it right there.
Okay.
Talking to the main schools, though, I would say Tennessee, Alabama, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, just Tennessee, obviously the in-state school. What appeals to you about them?
Yeah, obviously my dad played there. I grew up in Knoxville. But, like going through the recruiting process, I realized like this decision can't be based off my dad. And like I got to go do what's best for me. That's what I'm going to do. And I've talked to my family. I've talked to my dad about it. And so whether I'm at UCLA, whether I'm at Bama, whether I'm at Texas A&M, maybe I end up at Tennessee, I'm just going to go where it's best for me.
Texas A&M's another one that I know you made your way to College Station. Your dad had told me, I think you guys were playing. We were talking on the sidelines, and he was saying how much you guys enjoyed that trip. What did you like so much? What do you like so much about Texas A&M right now?
Yeah, it was fun. It was weird seeing their facility was huge. It was bigger than most facilities. The indoor facility was crazy. I got to see my grandpa. He's from Dallas, so we had to spend some time with him. Haven't seen him in a minute. Coach Troop, he's a really good guy. I got to spend some time with him, eat dinner with him the night I got there. So it was fun.
I was telling our Alabama insider over here, Brett Greenberg, that I was like, he was asking me about you yesterday, and he's like, the Crimson Tide really have a shot? And I gave my opinion. What's your opinion? Alabama's got a shot here? What do you like about them?
Yes, sir, they got a shot.
Okay. What appeals to you about them?
When you think of Alabama, you think of standard. They've always, since I was born, they've always been winning. And they've put out linebackers for forever that I can remember. And then Coach Chuck and Coach Womack and Coach DeBoer, being able to build a relationship with them, it's been really fun. It's cool down there, I like the campus.
I'm gonna put your feet to the fire a little bit here. Long way to go till you make a decision. But if you were to give somebody a slight edge, like, hey, this team's on top, come and get them, is there one team that's kind of got a slight edge for you right now heading into an important offseason for you? All right, I'll let you out. All right, listen, man, we appreciate you. I think I was telling Andrew yesterday that I think you're going to have one of the better weeks out here. Really excited to have him see what I've seen. You had a great junior year. So, Kenny Simon, appreciate you, man.
Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, man. Congrats on being here, man.
Thank you.
Kenny Simon, one of the top linebackers, edge rushers. Thoughts?
No, linebacker all the way,
Yeah.
3-down linebacker. And, what you want to see is you want to see these guys move forward and closer to the ball. That's what you always want to see. And I actually went back and watched his sophomore tape right when we invited him, and he was playing in the secondary.
Yeah.
They moved him closer. He brought the third down pass rush value that he has, and it's easy to see why so many of these SEC programs have kind of zeroed in on him, have circled him, because that is what is in right now, right? You need guys that can defend the run, can defend the pass, can assignment, can do it at a high level, and he's a guy that, as you noted, Tom, he's got a chance to continue to scale up in the rankings. And, we've done some self-scouting as well, I think, at that linebacker position, trying to find, okay, who are the guys that have hit, right? What do they have in common? It's a lot of guys where there's two-way snaps. Kenneth Simon did that at one point. It's a lot of guys that were former safeties that have moved into the box. It's a lot of guys that, are over 6'2". Kenneth Simon comes in over 6'2". So I'm excited to see him, and I think you were spot on when you stood on the table to get him in this game.
He just looks a little different when you're watching the game live and you're there and you see some really high-level players moving around, and then you see Simon, and it's like, man, this kid really, if he needed to, he could play safety. He could rush off the edge. He could be a linebacker. He's just an outstanding kid, a difference maker. Blair Angulo joining us.
Can I give the scouting team crystal ball on Kenneth Simon?
Heck yeah, do it.
I think he likes Bama, dude. And I always have this conversation with my buddies who are obviously not in this field. Dude, I think this built by Bama thing is going to just I think they can ride that for a few more years. He said it, right? Since I grew up, Alabama's always won. And, that's the lasting legacy, I think, for Nick Saban. It's going to take a while for that shine to kind of wear off, right? These kids all think, you go to Bama, you go to the league. And that comment stood out to me.
I would give Alabama a slight edge right now. I think A&M really opened his eyes, and I think he's trying to. I'm not going to say he's trying to find a reason not to go to Tennessee, but I think that he feels real safe, real comfortable with Tennessee. Dad went there, coached there, all of the connections there. But I just feel like there's something. Well, Tennessee there that
Tennessee, they have, in my opinion, signed the top 2 linebacker tandem in the 2026 cycle. Both of them are here. You gushed about Braden Rouse earlier. TJ White, he's got some Jalen Walker to his game. And then, Cooper Witten is a legacy in the 2027 cycle. They already got J.P. Pierce committed as well. I mean, Tennessee's going to be fine at linebacker, but man, if they could pair him with what they already have committed, looking good in Knoxville.
Did you pick up any nuggets or anything over there when you were working the interview space?
I haven't interviewed anyone yet, but there's some games going on over here. I think there's some sort of social media stuff, and then we got Odom here, I think, who's going to join us soon.
I mean,
another line change.
I'm good with that, dude. I mean, Harry, why don't you stay on? I'll hop out, and then you want to do something like that?
Sure.
Here,
let's do it.
Danny. Shake it up.
So we'll have Danny in the middle.
Go take the middle spot. I'll hop out for a few.
Mr. 5-star.
5-star, Danny Odom. Danny, obviously this is a huge moment for a lot of players, being in this game. I know when you guys start to build up, some vision boards, some goals, some objectives, this is always, I think, a moment that players want to check off of their accomplishments list. For you specifically, what does it mean to be here, be an All-American, and be in San Antonio?
It means a lot. Like, this is like a dream come true. I'm just here to prove that I'm everything that people say I am.
Well, you are a 5-star prospect at 24/7 Sports. I got a chance to see you against IMG Academy in the preseason. But I think the game of the year for you was against Venice. You had 3 interceptions. Did things slow down for you here as a senior?
Yeah, yes, sir. For sure. Like going forward in the season, like things got started to process a little slower game. I just let the game come to me instead of trying to rush plays and make it happen. Just let the game come to me.
You're headed to Nebraska, right?
Sure.
You're a 5-star for them. But there was a lot of different options, right? I think early on people thought you were going to go to Clemson, Ohio State. They were involved. They came late again. Oklahoma, Auburn, Florida's big 3, the in-state schools. You're a kid that's originally from Pittsburgh, right? How wild did the recruitment get, not only when you made the commitment, but then right before the early signing period?
Yeah, it got wild. Like it could have went a couple different ways, but I felt like when I made my decision, I felt like strongly on my opinion to stay there. I was like strongly in communication with all the coaching staff, so I just felt like that was the right place for me.
Why Nebraska?
It's like a built environment, like I tell y'all the underdog story, and then like the coaching staff connection. Like Coach Addison gave me one of my first offers from UCF. Been talking to him every week since then. Coach Rule from Penn State guys. So like we just got that bond.
You mentioned things getting wild. We're just hanging out here. We're just talking about recruiting. Take the viewers into kind of the behind the scenes and the background of like what's wild about the process when things are kind of getting down to the nitty gritty.
Everything, like the phone calls you get at any time of the day. You gotta keep your phone on alert. You don't know who's gonna be calling. They calling your parents. They might even just pop up on you. And then the new game. It's a lot of money everywhere. So thought.
We touched on this earlier in the show about specifically corners that have the ability to go in there and compete from day one. When you look at that depth chart, when you look at your opportunity to make an impact with the Huskers from the start, from when you get on campus, what's your visual of how you might be able to help out this team?
I feel like I could help out Nebraska in a big way. To just bringing that energy and that dog on the defensive side, locking down the whole side of the field. I feel like I'm capable of that. So I feel like we should be able to win a lot more games, get a lot more stops this year.
I heard you tell one of our reporters over there about how cold it was on one of your visits that you went out to campus, and take me through what the experience is like to not only stand in front of that fan base, but get a feel for what you're going to be able to expect in the fall when you are on the field.
Yeah, it's like as soon as you walk in, like fans greeting, like they knew my name. Like when they was yelling my name before I committed, like they always showed me mad love. Like, and it's just like once you see that, it's like who wouldn't want to play there? Like who wouldn't want to be that? People chanting your name, like they love that. Nebraska football is something they only got down there, so they like treated good.
Danny, how important was Nebraska's new football building? I got a chance to check it out. I mean, it is state of the art.
Yes, sir.
I think I was talking with Ja'Cory Barney, who's another Florida kid. He was there working out. I'm like, do you ever leave this building? And he's like, no. Like, I think he might sleep in there. I mean, it's kind of a game changer. And you said it, hey, like the money's all that stuff, but like that has to like make the decision a little bit easier, just knowing that like, okay, I can train here, I can do all my studying here, right?
Yeah, like, and it's like right there across the street from all your classes too. So you don't need to be nowhere else. So you know where I'm gonna be. I'm be in that facility 24/7.
Danny, in that same light, I think we talk a lot about the trajectory of programs, right? Whether the arrow is pointing up, whether the arrow is pointing down, whether the program is maybe stagnated a little bit. What gives you the belief that Coach Rule has things going in the right direction there?
Because me and Coach Rule talk all the time. I know you saw on one of his last interviews, he said like, we like Indiana, we just ain't do it as fast enough. Like that's what I was seeing before like me and Coach Rule started talking about it. So I feel like in the future we're gonna have a big run.
All right, last one I have for you here, because I think college football's landscape changing, right? You're going to the Big Ten.
Yes, sir.
I don't know, 5 years ago, a guy like you, over 6 feet, 34-inch arms, shutting down elite wide receivers at the prep level, like those guys would probably go in the SEC. So did that, like the conferences factor in at all? Were you like, hey man, I feel like I'm a Big Ten corner, or you were looking for the right fit?
Yeah, I'm really looking for the right fit because I feel like I could play in any conference. But I also feel like the SEC has been leading the past few years, but I feel like the Big Ten is taking over college football.
Is there a chance next season you could be like matched up with Jeremiah Smith? Do you guys have Ohio State on the schedule?
I'm pretty sure. If not, we'll see them in the playoffs.
All right, you heard it here first. 5-star cornerback Danny.
And thank you for showing up and competing, man. Like a lot of these seniors.
That's actually something that we need to bring up more, right? Because I think for the most part, guys get their stamp or they get the offers or they get the star ranking. And sometimes we lose sight of the fact that there's still a competitive cycle to be had. So, yeah, I appreciate you showing up.
Who are you locking up this week? Who's on the list?
Whoever step out of there. It's a marathon. You got to prove yourself every day.
All right. I love it.
Yes,
I'm stealing that. It's a marathon.
It is a marathon. 5-star corner, Danny Odom. Thank you so much
for
joining
Yes,
us.
appreciate
Best of luck this week and best of luck in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Appreciate you.
All right, we're going to do a double line change here.
Let's do it.
We're going to leave my computer, please.
No, that one's
Oh, you switched up already? Yeah, you are.
I don't know your passwords.
The athleticism, man.
We got a declaration guy right here,
Love
right?
this, dude. Fires me up. Montana Torbert, one of the top players in Ohio. Listed as an athlete, but you told me you are a safety all the way. Everybody loves you playing safety. But if a quarterback happened to get banged up, or if we need to get you in there at quarterback, we can do that. I want to just first of all, thanks for being here. Fired up about you. One of the more impressive players in 2027. But how does it feel, man, to be a Navy All-American?
It's a real moment right now. It's always been like a dream come true to just be an All-American. So I'm taking it one step at a time, just living in the moment.
Ivins, this is our director of scouting, Andrew Ivins. You were a big part on getting him invited. Can you tell everybody right to his face what kind of player Montana Torbert is?
Well, I think you're an electric two-way athlete, right? 11-1 as a starting quarterback, right? But you always also do it on defense. And I think your range, your tracking skills shows up on tape. And we needed a safety, and I'm like, hey, I got the perfect guy. And guess what? He's about getting ready to make a decision here.
Yeah. We got the 5 finalists. We got Cincinnati, Indiana, Kentucky, Pittsburgh, Iowa. Let's start with Cincinnati. What appeals to you about the Bearcats?
The Bearcats, I'm a Cincinnati kid, and growing up around Cincinnati, that's in my backyard. So I've always been around Cincinnati football. Cincinnati football known to play hard, and hopefully one day I can change the culture at Cincinnati.
Indiana, competing for a national championship right now. A lot of buzz around the Hoosiers. What stands out about them?
Just the culture change. They winning. Everybody want to win, and I love the defensive schemes that Indiana got. They got a great defensive coach. Coach Haynes, just the schemes, and they dialed in right now. I love the quarterback offense. They competing, they hungry.
How about Kentucky, man? What do you like about them?
The Wildcats, Kentucky's SEC football. They making a change. I like the new staff there, and hopefully they could change the next narrative in the SEC.
Pittsburgh, Coach Narduzzi, all those guys in Western PA. What stands out about the Panthers?
The Panthers produce a lot of defensive guys, like high caliber defensive guys that play well in the league. So it's just the history of the Panthers.
And then lastly, we got Iowa. What jumps out about the Hawkeyes, man?
Oh, the Hawkeyes. A lot of athletes came through Iowa too, and Iowa was one of the first schools to jump on my recruitment early. Like one of the first Power Fours to really jump on my recruitment early. So stay loyal to the staff.
I got a question for you, right? Tom said a lot of buzz around Indiana. We'll see what happens on Saturday. What is it like being recruited by Kirk Cignetti? I think that is like a pressing question. He's like the most fascinating man in college football right now, probably behind his quarterback, Alberto Mendoza, or Fernando Mendoza, not his brother. What's it like being recruited by him?
So Coach Cignetti, he chill. He never show no emotion. You never know when he's excited or when he's not excited. But he's a great dude, and like I said, he want to win.
Does he like text you? Does he FaceTime you, or you just see him on some of those campus visits?
We see face to face, or we get on a FaceTime call.
Okay.
When you make your decision Saturday at the 2026 Navy All-American Bowl on NBC, tell the fans at home, what are they getting in you, both as a player but also as a person?
As a person, I'm a very enjoyable person, a good person to be around, and a leader. I lead everybody that's around me to be better people and just do better things in our neighborhood and community.
All right, one of the most electric two-way guys, Monsanto Torbert Jr., announcing Saturday. Congrats on everything, man. Thanks for being here.
Stay tuned Saturday.
Are you missing some basketball games to be here?
Yes, sir.
Oh, you appreciate it. I know. You averaged almost like a double-double last year. So
Yeah, missing a couple basketball games, but
those boys will hold it down, right?
Yeah,
they understand.
All right, well, thank you again, man. You're good to go. Appreciate it. Good luck this week. Let's get back to some of these live commitments. Obviously, we just had Torbert, but
can we just bring up?
Go ahead.
From my seat, and I don't live in this space like you do, but Indiana, I've been kind of waiting. It's like, all right, when are they going to capitalize on?
Yeah.
This run in the college football playoff appearance last year? It seems like, Tom, the 2027 cycle. You're starting to hear Hoosiers with more of these guys, and they got a quarterback already committed in the 2027 cycle in Jamison Purcell. But I have noticed Indiana on more top 5 lists, and I think the staff there, Cignetti, they now have a seat at the table with some prospects where that wouldn't have been the case, maybe 10 years ago, right? It was the basketball school, so. I don't have the answer to how Indiana has put this run together, aside from Cignetti being an elite X and O's coach, but they are going to parlay it appears, into high school recruiting.
I would agree. And honestly, not going to lie, we don't know for sure what he's doing. So you really need to stay tuned on Saturday. But there's a lot of buzz around Indiana. There's a lot of hometown pressure to stay home and play for Cincinnati too. It was funny that I don't even know if he's got the offer, but he seemed to really like Miami. We were talking about them. He said that might even have been his national championship pick, because everybody's betting against him. But a lot of buzz around Indiana. I think they could add another guy that we'll probably talk about shortly, that's committing on Saturday. So Blair, welcome back. It'll be. I'm excited to see Torbert. I've never seen him in person. Watch some of the tape. He's electric, man. There's a lot to like there. I want to go back to some of these commitments that are coming up on Saturday. Coors Loken, due to Wisconsin rules, cannot play.
Dude, costing him money, man.
Started.
Costing him money,
Not
right?
a huge fan of that.
I think we need to bring that up, right? So, 2 years ago, I went to the directors at the All-American Bowl, and we realized, hey, the college football playoffs expanding. Hey, these guys have more pressure to start classes as soon as possible. And thank you, Louisville, for allowing Briggs Cherry to play, because there's a lot of other schools out there that don't want their guys. Yeah, we're not going to name. And so we started with the juniors last year. it was a massive success. Remember Keyshawn Henderson, our number one player, he was the MVP of this game. We had Felix Ojo, Xavier Griffin, Braylon Womack. All these guys came out and proved their value. And so we're running it back. There's a ton of juniors here as well. Again, some states out there still eligibility-wise, they don't want to allow their guys to play. California, they're allowing some of them. Alabama's a no. Illinois is a no. Pennsylvania's a no. And Wisconsin's a no. So, Coors is going to show up. I don't know if he's doing the National Combine on Friday, but this is an opportunity where, he could have made himself some money in this rev share era, in this name, image, and likeness era. So unfortunate, and hopefully, there's some legislation that changes in the future.
Yeah, it would have been nice to kind of be able to get him more involved. I know he was really excited about it, and we'll see if he works out on Friday at the underclassmen combine. But Notre Dame, Wisconsin, Indiana, Kansas, a lot of buzz there around all 4 schools. He's still kind of narrowing it down. Told me he's still talking to a bunch of schools. So it's kind of really anyone's guess at this point, but really, really excited about that kid. A lot to like there. We actually were. I think Mike Roach was supposed to join us, but I don't know where he's at now. We were going to talk a little buzz. He's been talking to some people, but we'll have him on shortly. If you want to move on, is there anybody else committing this week that you feel you're kind of intrigued by, interested in anything?
I think the 2026 commitments, right? This is the new era of early signing. We've got about 90% or so that sign, and so now some of these late guys that are still deciding, Will Rajecki and Caleb Triplett, those are 2 2026s that we'll be announcing Saturday at the All-American Bowl. I think that carries a little bit of intrigue because right now, and I wrote this during the offseason, a lot of personnel departments are really going to key in on the February signing period as that last opportunity to shore up some shortcomings in the transfer portal, right? I think you view the early signing period as a big part of how you build a team. Yeah. You've got numerous teams that had over 30 signees at the high school ranks. And now in the portal, you start to shore up things, you start to change the depth chart. And so that's kind of one of those big components now is, okay, where do we have some shortcomings? Where did we miss on some players that we needed in the portal? You do that in February, and you do that with players like Rajecki and like Triplett, who, maybe are a little bit more patient or trying to see what develops in their own recruitments with coaching changes and all the moving parts that come with it as well.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I feel like so many guys are in a rush to announce, make decisions, but sometimes there is a benefit to not signing early and not really just jumping in the fold with somebody. And Will Rajecki is exactly a great example of that. Didn't sign early with Memphis. Still looking around, still talking to some schools. You got Oregon State, Arkansas, Georgia, a couple other schools in the mix. So we'll see what he's doing on Saturday. And then 2026 linebacker Caleb Triplett that you brought up. He was one of our 24/7 Sports MVPs of the Mississippi-Alabama All-Star Game. Looking at North Texas, Southern Miss, a few others. So he's also making his decision thank you, Clara, on Saturday. Now we welcome in the man himself, Mike Roach.
I don't know about all that.
You are the man. Magic Mike covers Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, everywhere.
Don't forget about New Mexico.
I always do, and it's disrespectful.
The land of enchantment. How could you forget?
It's completely on me. I know we've been on here, but you've been kind of working a lot of the players coming in, getting some scoop. Any early intel that you kind of gathered over there?
I think the 2 biggest notes: Caden Scott, the 2027 top 247 offensive tackle from right here in San Antonio, down to a top 10. Maintains he's wide open, but when he talks about A&M, glows. I think he said he was at nearly every A&M home game this year. Said the experience at Kyle Field was like no other, and so I think signs have been pointing that way for a while, and there was nothing today to make me think any different. And then the other thing is, always good to check in with these guys that are signed, but maybe at a school where they've had a recent coaching change. Yeah. Malachi Lee, the big offensive tackle from Hawaii going to Michigan, confirmed he's locked in with Kyle Whittingham and Michigan, excited about the future there in Ann Arbor.
That's a big keep for Michigan and Whittingham. But this week as a whole, we kind of opened the show talking about guys that Blair is excited to see this week, myself, Ivans. Anybody jump out for you that you're looking forward to watch work out, look around, see him work out? Anybody, even it could be in your region, outside of your region, anybody really jump out for you?
Yeah, in my region, certainly Malachi Ziegler, the 2027 quarterback. I think he is as toolsy as it gets, and have loved his skill set for a while. Now he plays on a high school team that hasn't had a ton of success. He's kind of a one-man show on that team. So his high school stats haven't been the greatest, but I think getting to see him in a setting like this where he's competing against elite talent, seeing how he kind of adjusts, rises to the occasion, and then, of course, what the arm talent looks like once he's there.
I want to ask you real quickly, but just because we have you here, and I know there's so many fans watching at home right now, I want to look at these three classes. I know you don't have a ton of notes or anything in front of you, so I appreciate you sitting down. But I want to start with Texas's class in 2026. For the Longhorns fans, there's so much talent in your region that's headed to Austin. What jumps out to you is like, hey, this is the guy to know, Texas fans?
It's an easy one, but it's Jermaine Bishop.
Okay.
I mean, he is possibly the best high school player I've ever covered.
Wow.
I told him that this year. I was like, I think it's you and Anthony Hill are the two best high school players I've ever watched. I mean, he is high school Travis Hunter. He is as elite as it gets on both sides of the ball. Electric speed. I remember watching him during our state 7-on-7 competition, and I was standing with a former All-American first-round pick, Texas safety Michael Griffin, and he's like, I want to see this kid if he's coming to Texas. And he first comment he made was he gets off the line like Peter Warwick, like he releases like
That's
Peter
high
Warwick,
praise.
Which is a throwback. And I think if I mentioned that to Jermaine, he would ask me who. But he is, to me, as electric as it gets in the high school ranks, and a guy that I think can make an impact on both sides of the ball day one, certainly offense, certainly special teams, where he can be a factor in the return game.
Another class was the Oklahoma class, Mike, and you know, this is a slow start for that staff as they battled maybe some, I don't want to say hot seat questions around Brent Venables, but definitely some lukewarm questions about the direction of the program. What's the stability? Are they going to be able to compete in the SEC? They answered that emphatically this year. It translated to some really nice recruiting victories. They early on in the 2027 cycle, already the number one class in the 24/7 sports rankings. So how would you sum up the surge and the momentum that the Sooners have built?
I think they've done a really good job, obviously, bringing in Jim Nagy to run the operation. They've got a lot more of a buttoned up approach to things, and I think that they've done a good job kind of evaluating guys for market value and for talent and that sort of thing. Made some huge flips down the stretch. Guy I love in that class, again, right here from the San Antonio area, is Jonathan Hatton.
Yeah.
This guy, when you see him, I remember seeing him at Under Armour last year. He looks like an NFL back already. Like the way he's put together a really strong high school career, has the athleticism to back it up. And for Oklahoma, that struggled to find, a consistent threat in the run game, I think he's a guy that could come in and make an impact right away.
I want to move on to Texas A&M as well, because they have it rolling under Mike Elko there in College Station. But just kind of, and we got a couple guys here. I know Tristen Givens, 5-star edge rusher, is going to be here.
6 guys.
6 guys total? Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's not too shabby. And again, I think Ivan's mentioned it, but one of the coolest things I saw this week was the collaboration between Texas A&M and the All-American Bowl, kind of putting that graphic. These guys are signed. We'll get you guys back soon. They're coming to San Antonio. So I thought that was really neat. Nice collaboration. But kind of looking at this class, just kind of judge their class as a whole. What do you think of the job they did? I think they finished number 9 in the composite, but number 3 for 24/7 Sports. What do you think of the job they did, and maybe anybody that really jumps out as a day one potential contributor for A&M?
They've done a fantastic job. I've been really impressed with their operation as a whole as well. Derek Miller, their GM, has done a great job, again, kind of buttoning things up versus what it looked like under Jimbo Fisher. To me, the thing that stood out most with their class is they're maybe the fastest roster in the SEC, and then they add all this game-changing speed. Like Brandon Arrington's going to be here this week. I mean, I'm really excited to see him because you talk to people in College Station, and they just talk about this guy has a gear that maybe nobody on our roster has. And along with that, they've been one of the better defensive front teams in the country. And then they're adding all this defensive front talent to the group as well. So, I mean, they've done a really good job of just continuing to roll over the roster, continuing to turn over the bottom of the roster and making it, better each time they do. And they've also been aggressive in the portal where they've found like instant contributors.
you had an incredible feature earlier this month about Texas Tech, and you took us inside how they were able to come up with not only the roster that they built to reach the college football playoff, but also what they've been doing on the recruiting front and their talent acquisition kind of speaks for itself. They've been, obviously very, very transfer portal active since they lost that playoff game. But Felix Ojo is one of the top guys here. I think an immediate impact type of contributor for the Red Raiders. How would you characterize what they've done on the field, as well as how they've been able to, kind of lean into some of the NIL stuff that people talk about with them and now built really significant buzz throughout the country? Yeah,
it's been amazing to watch. If I think about where Texas Tech was 2 years ago, and they were a Moneyball team, they were finding value on the margins, and that was,
they were doing this.
Yes, exactly. That was by design. They were, when Joey McGuire got there and James Blanchard, their GM, it was, let's start finding the undervalued guys that we can build the foundation of the roster with. And when we have a strong enough foundation, we'll start adding top tier talent to it. They've done it through the transfer portal, and now they're starting to do it through the high school ranks. I mean, Felix Ojo was the shock of the summer, maybe. That recruitment looked like it was going either Texas or Ohio State's way. Certainly looked like it was going Texas's way. And then literally, I mean, I can recall being at a 4th of July, or getting ready for 4th of July festivities, having a story ready for Texas, and then getting a call that's like, hey, it's going to be Tech. So what they've done, I think, is tremendous. Felix is a guy I'm actually really looking forward to seeing this year. He was here last year. Really surprised some people with how well he performed as an underclassman. What does it look like playing in his second time in the All-American Bowl now that he's got his feet wet? I talked to him in the lead up to this, and it was like, hey, you've done this once. What are the plan now? And he's like, last year I kind of established myself. This year I'm going to dominate, want to dominate the entire week.
I want to lean into the Moneyball thing. All right. So we know Ojo. Who is the Scott Hatterberg in this recruiting class? Who's the unheralded guy that's going to get the montage that kind of, climaxes the storyline there?
We've bumped him significantly up the rankings late, so I don't know if he quite qualifies, but Kagan Ash from Mount Enterprise, Texas, tiny school out in East Texas. This guy put up insane numbers, broke several what people thought were unbreakable records in the state of Texas this year, and is a two-way player, can play defense or offense. I think early on people were like, this is a defensive guy, and late in the year we're having texts saying if they don't play him on offense, they're crazy. So he's the guy for me that, when you look at them play, you see the guys they get in the portal, but there's guys all over their roster. Ben Roberts was a guy I remember out of high school that nobody wanted, and he's 2 picks in the Big 12 championship game, had a pick in the playoff game at linebacker. They find guys like that all the time. I think Kagan Ash is that guy for them.
This class, the more, and I wrote that story over at our Texas Tech site after talking to some sources over there in Lubbock, and it's mind-blowing how good this class is. I mean, everybody's excited about Texas Tech, and they're moving in the right direction. They're spending money, and they're very open about it. But LaDainian Guyton is a guy that I'm super fired up about. Ended up as a 5-star for us. But Chase Campbell, top 247 receiver, top 247 offensive tackle, Bryce Gilmore, 2 guys really well. I mean, what do you think Texas Tech fans can expect out of those 2 guys?
Love Chase Campbell. He's a guy. He's a Lubbock guy. He plays high school ball 10 minutes away from Tech's campus. He was a guy. I went to a coaching clinic in Lubbock 2 years ago before he was really known, and every coach in Lubbock was like, "Have you seen Chase Campbell?" And I immediately went home, started watching. His basketball stuff's off the charts. He's like an above the rim hoops player. So when you see that translate to the receiver position, it's a guy that can go deep. It's a guy that can go up and win the ball. And kind of perfect for that wide open offense they run there. As far as Bryce Gilmore, we'll see him this week too, from what I believe, right?
Yeah.
And so he's a guy that plays at Prosper High School. Prosper High School is essentially offensive line high school in Texas. I mean, they had 4 guys on their offensive line signed with Power 4 schools this year. They produced year after year after year. He's a guy that I think was probably the best prospect and probably the least finished product on that offensive line. That includes Zayden Crimpen, who's going to A&M, Sean Stover, who's going to Duke. there's guys that probably were a little more put together, but Bryce is the guy that looks the best, has the best tools, all those sorts of things. So these are guys, and again, we talk about maybe you want to spend money. People think you want to spend money on the skill positions. Tech's done a lot of work at fortifying the trenches because they understand playing in the Big 12, they can have an advantage if they just spend in the trenches. And that's what we saw this year. They dominated up front defensively. David Bailey was unblockable. Romello Height was unblockable. And so I think that you're going to continue to see them pour resources into there and maybe find, they'll certainly spend for some guys at the skill positions, but maybe find their gems there.
Savorian Martin is another one that's going to be here this week. Top 2-4 or maybe just outside 4-star cornerback. Another one headed to Texas Tech. Just kind of a little bit about him. That for me personally, when I was talking to my guy at Texas Tech, I mean, they were raving about this kid and still called him underrated, even though he's a high 4 for us. But what'd you think about a guy like that?
Just tools off the charts. And I'm really excited to see how he performs this week, because when you see him, when he walks in here, and he hasn't yet, but when he walks in here, you'll take notice. He's big, he's long, he is exactly how you want an NFL corner to be built. And he's got some really encouraging athletic context to that, but plays at the school in Palestine, East Texas again. And they weren't, the best team, didn't have the greatest record, but can recall a couple of years ago, his head coach calling me over and over, hey, I got to tell you about this kid. I got to tell you about this kid. And when I started getting his measurements from different college staffs, they were like, oh, okay. This is why everybody's so excited about this kid. It was originally, I can't remember if he committed or was originally leaning at least to Kansas State, and then Tech moved in on him pretty aggressively when he was still a 3-star for us. And, we really started to take notice. I think Andrew saw him at an event in the offseason, and we saw him at several other events. This is a guy that he's a lottery ticket. There's a lot of development there left for him, but if you develop him, he's an NFL corner. Absolutely.
I want to kind of go off on like a different tangent. And in this modern recruiting landscape, the regional lines are so blurred. Everyone's recruiting from everywhere. There's schools from different conferences going to different parts of the country that they've never touched before because they're aligned with different teams that weren't in those conferences. When it pertains to the state of Texas specifically, I know in the past we've talked about what would it look like now that Oklahoma's in the SEC, now that Texas is in the SEC and they've joined A&M and battling for some of those recruits. Have there been any other schools or programs or teams that have dipped into the Lone Star State that maybe you are surprised by, or that are starting to get more of an imprint and are competing? Because we know the Georgias are going to come down here. We know that, the LSUs are going to be down in Texas. Any other schools that you're looking at, you're like, man, I'm really impressed with the job they've been doing?
I've seen a lot more Indiana as of late. Obviously, they're kind of feeling themselves everywhere, and why not? But Indiana as of late, Arizona State's made it a huge priority. I mean, the Texas to Tempe thing is something they talk about quite a bit, and there's a lot of Texas connections on that staff. I think for me, one to watch this year is going to be Kentucky. Adding Will Stein, who did a lot of his coaching in the state of Texas at Lake Travis High School at UTSA before he went to Oregon as head coach. He's brought some guys over from that UTSA staff, including Joe Price, who is a legend in Houston recruiting. That's going to be a staff that all of a sudden you're going to see Kentucky pop up in Texas and be a factor. Those are the big-time programs. Cal, I think Cal's done a tremendous job finding guys that are, maybe below the first or second cut, but guys that can still play, and not only in Texas, in Oklahoma, where they got Daniel McMorris, who I think was a great addition for them. And then Utah's kind of always recruited Texas, and they've done it in a way that the joke is here, if Utah offers a kid in Texas, like, everybody takes notice because they've done a really sharp job evaluating those kids.
I want to pivot a little bit away from Texas. One's going to be here, one might be here next year, but we got 2 5-stars in Louisiana. That is part of your region, 2 of the best in the entire country. You got quarterback Elijah Haven, you got tight end Ahmad Hudson. That I cannot say it enough. There's a lot of people in this room that have not been able to see Ahmad Hudson yet, and I think they're going to be like blown away. But just give a little bit of background maybe on the recruiting process for both of them, and then also just like what you've seen out of both of them, because I know you've seen them a bunch of times.
Yeah, you talk about a guy that I mentioned earlier, Savorian Martin walks in, everybody will take notice. Triple that for Ahmad Hudson. I mean, just when you're a guy that can be a 5-star basketball player and a 5-star football player, you're going to get noticed when you walk in a room. He is he's large, obviously, but he's also got a large personality that I love about him, and can kind of do it all. You know, he's built like you would think a modern flex tight end, just a guy that goes vertical, but he can block, he can play in line, he can do all those things. I think his recruitment's really interesting because Nebraska is absolutely a factor in that recruitment. I think with most Louisiana kids, people just say, okay, at some point they're just going to LSU. But obviously the turnover at LSU, we're going to see how Lane Kiffin approaches that recruitment. Nebraska has been on this kid as much of a priority as one can make him. I was at, they actually, his team, Ruston High School in North Louisiana, played in Texas 4 games this year because they can't find scheduling in Louisiana. Nobody wants to play them. So they came into Texas. They played several powerhouses. Gabe Brooks and I went and saw them when they played in the Dallas area, and Matt Rule showed up that night. Made sure to get on a plane on a Thursday night and get down to Texas to see him. So they're making him a huge priority, and basketball is obviously going to be a big factor there. As far as Elijah Haven, I have loved the kid since the first time we saw him at OT7 a couple years ago. You and I, Tom. Big kid, big arm, great athlete. And I think for us, we were waiting to see if the skills and the production would come along to match the athleticism. This year it did. He led his team to a state championship, rewrote several Louisiana passing records, had a tremendous game in the state finals. This is a guy that sky is the limit. When you look at the recruitment, it's been a big reset, right? I mean, he was originally, it was like LSU and Florida. You know, LSU takes a quarterback and has a coaching change. Florida has a coaching change. Penn State was in there for a little bit. They've got a coaching change. And so now it's been a reset. I think Alabama and Georgia are now the two schools.
And even Alabama loses Nick Sheridan,
right.
who's a primary for him.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it's constantly been throughout his recruitment, oh, great, I like this school. They're now one of my favorites. Oh, now I need to make a new relationship at that school. And so I think that's been difficult, but I like where Alabama stands. I think Georgia, if they make a push, is dangerous. You know, his family is originally from Georgia, grew up Georgia fans. So interested to see how that plays out this year for Elijah Haven.
Can you imagine if Georgia gets an early 5-star quarterback commit? I'm sure that'll end up extremely well. No problem. Now we're going to bring on another All-American, Charles Woodson Jr., Tom Lloyd, good to see you. And then bring on Andrew Ivins, bring him back because you are here because this guy wouldn't have an All-American Bowl without you being here. So our director of scouting. First, I know you don't have any bloodlines at all at the college or NFL level. Look, guys, this is the son of Charles Woodson, an all-timer, collegiate NFL special guy. But how does it feel, man, to be here in San Antonio at the 2026 Navy All-American Bowl?
Yeah, it feels great. It's a blessing, you know, all these good players here. So it's going to be fun.
It's pretty cool. I was with Andrew, I don't know if it was a year ago, 2 years ago, something we saw in Miami, and he's like, I think that's Charles Woodson's son over there, and you were just balling. It was really cool to see, and now, obviously, fast forward, whatever, it's 12 or 24 months later, here you are. We'll dive into the recruiting process here shortly. We'll get to all that and when you're going to make a decision, all that kind of stuff, but one of the top players in the 2027 class. But, Andrew, this is one that I know, you were on extremely early.
Yeah, and I got to see you play this season in person. You were in my backyard, my literal backyard, 5-minute drive. I think you opened up, 96-yard kickoff return?
Yes, sir.
But I think the story here is you're a guy that doesn't do a ton of camps.
No, I don't.
Not much written about your recruitment. So, obviously everyone knows your dad. Tell us about Charles Woodson Jr. I mean, what are you about?
I just love football. I love football. I love the game. I don't know. I'm not a flashy person. You know what I'm saying? I just like playing football. That's it.
Or your safety, right?
Yes, sir. Safety.
And you see the game really well. So, when did that all start? And who have you been studying? Or who are some of the guys you've been around?
It was freshman year. I think I was trying to play receiver, but then one of our safeties went down. I think in the varsity game, and I got in and I started making plays. So then I was like, I'm good at the safety thing, so I'm continuing to play safety, and so I'm here now.
I think a lot of people assume Michigan is the school for you. So, hey, you can address it right now.
I can
right?
address it. I know. I mean, I get it just because my dad went there, but it's not just because he went, that doesn't mean that's my choice. You know what I'm saying? That's not it. So,
But they are in it, right? Like
course,
they've offered, they're involved. What do you like outside of, hey, my dad went there and he was incredible? What do you like about Michigan for Charles Woodson Jr., not Charles Woodson?
no, I mean, when I talked to, Coach Morgan's gone now, the DB coach, but the way he said he would, use me on the defense was really, I like that a lot. And then, I mean, they just treat you good there when I was up there, so I was good.
You just brought it up, and that's really one thing that I don't necessarily know. I mean, you've been around it at so many levels for such a long time, and not everybody has that opportunity. But when it comes down to picking a school, yes, it is important. You're going to connect with these coaches, assistant coaches, head coaches. But how important is it when you make a decision, the relationships with the coaches, or do you realize like overnight everything can change?
It's important, like, to have good relationships with the coaches, but it is kind of crazy how quick things can change, and it's crazy. I don't even know.
I mean, I'm glad you see it, because we see it and we've seen it for such a long time. But I feel like all these guys are shocked when it's like overnight. Oh man, my coach just left, and it's like, have you not been watching that it happens every single year? I want to talk about your recruitment a little bit. You got 15 or so offers at this point. We probably have some light on the page, but where do things stand in terms of like maybe a couple schools doing a really good job that you'd show some love to? And then also where you at just in terms of the timing of when you want to make a decision?
Well, the timing with my decision, I hope, to make it summer before the season. But I say the school is making like trying to push to get me. I'd say Florida State is number one. I'll say Syracuse second. Then Michigan, even though it would just happen, so I don't even know what's going to happen with that. Right. But then, other than that, I mean, Tennessee, they talk to me a little bit, but I don't have an offer from them. Okay. But I do talk to them. But other than that, I mean, that's really all I talk to.
Okay, in-state school, you're with the Seminoles. What stands out about Mike Norvell and his staff there?
I went up there this summer on a bus tour, and Norvell, he seems like a good, genuine coach. I mean, I don't know what happened this year. They started off good, but I mean, I think he's good. He's a good coach. So, but I know they got rid of Pat Surtain, which was kind of shocking to me. But I met the safeties coach Evan Cooper there, and he's a good guy. So yeah.
And then what about Syracuse? What jumps out of them and has them in that top tier to land you?
My relationship with Coach Tommy Caporal, I think I said his last name. Yeah. I talked to him a decent amount, and he makes you feel like family. You know what I'm saying? So I talk to him the most. And so just talking to him, I think like it makes Syracuse a good option.
What's it like just being the son of a Heisman Trophy winner?
It's crazy. Like people, they say I gotta like live up to his what he did. But I mean, that's just, I'm gonna do my own thing. Like, you know what I'm saying? But what he did was great. But it's he can be hard on me, on the field at practice. But he's a great dad. He's a good coach too.
I was going to say, one of my big takeaways when I saw you guys play, I mean, he's dad and he's coach, but he's not really like, he's just the DB coach.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was funny you guys were playing that Orlando Olympia, and I'm like, I don't think anyone realizes like Charles Woodson is right there.
Yeah, I know.
He does a great job of like hiding in.
Yeah, he does.
Now I know he plays a lot of golf, right?
Loves golf.
And he's got wine.
Yeah.
He's got his own wine label. I mean, I want to be.
Just want to hang out with him, play some golf.
What's the spring look like for you? Because again, you are a guy that has kind of been in the shadows, which we've seen with other kids with notable bloodlines. So like, are you going to take some visits? Or what are you trying to accomplish here over the next few months? And you can finish with what are you trying to accomplish this week?
What I want to do with the visits, like I want to be able to take a lot of visits this spring, these upcoming months, but I don't have any set up right now. This week I just want to showcase my talent versus the best. Yeah.
Put on for Orlando.
For Orlando, 407.
Hey, Lake Nona High School, Zane Durant came out there.
Exactly.
Are you close with Zane at all?
I don't even know. His uncle.
Say you don't even know.
His uncle coaches. He's a defensive coach, and then his cousin plays on the team. But I don't know Zane Durant personally. I just know who he is, of course. Yeah.
A couple questions we'll get you out of here. More of like a fun questionnaire. I was working with Clara Sales on this, who's behind the camera. But what's your go-to pregame song? Is it like the same one that you get you ready for a game?
I don't really have one. Like I listen to locker room music.
Yeah.
But I like Tupac.
Okay.
I listen to him. Yeah.
Throwback. All right. Love that. If you weren't playing football, what sport would you be playing, or what game would you be dominating at? Like, what's your kind of specialty away from the gridiron?
Special. Well, I would try to play baseball.
Okay.
Because I mean, it's a money sport. I mean, come on. But
Man.
and then maybe I used to play golf when I was younger, so maybe I play golf, but not anymore.
I know you said you got to take some visits down the road, but what's your most memorable game day trip you've taken so far?
Shoot, like the only one I've had is probably Michigan versus Wisconsin. So yeah.
And then what are you looking for outside of football when you're picking the school? Like, what is the number one priority?
The environment.
Okay.
I'll just say the environment, how the coaches are.
College football playoff semifinals are set. We've got Miami versus Ole Miss. We've got Indiana versus Oregon. Give me your two winners, and then give me the eventual national champion.
Ole Miss versus Miami. I got Ole Miss winning that.
Okay.
I got. I'm gonna go Oregon versus Indiana. National champ, Ole Miss.
Wow, that would be. Wow, that would set everything on fire. Charles Woodson Jr. Really, really excited to see you out here this week. Dad gonna be out here?
Yeah, he comes Wednesday.
Some good golf in here. There's some good golf courses around here, so he might hopefully. Yeah. I keep.
We're in the clubhouse, and it's like PGA winner, and then there's this Pro Football Hall of Fame photo of Charles. I'm like, wait, what's going on here?
He thinks he's good at golf. I mean, I give him a hard time with golf because he's getting there, but he think he can win tournaments and all that, but he's not. He's not. He's okay. He's decent. That's it. He's decent.
You're my new plug then. So we want to play like no. I need you to set that up, my man. Appreciate you. Congrats on everything, dude. Charles Woodson Jr., one of the top players in 2027. Very excited. I gotta say, man, Andrew, like his rise since we first saw him, and you're just like, oh, there's Charles Woodson's son, and he was making plays when nobody knew who he was, and now he's a Navy All-American.
Yeah, a bit on the smaller side, right? You know, he's not going to be on the all lobby check-in team, but hey, that's fine at that split safety position now, right? I think prime example, Antonio Winfield Jr., right, with the Tampa Bay Bucks second-round pick. I mean, what's the difference with him? It's the instincts, and I think with these legacy prospects, what you always see is just the FBI, right? The football intelligence, the football instincts, the football IQ. These guys grow up around the game, and they can see it, and they can process at a different level. And I think with Charles Woodson Jr., that shows up. Now, I do think it's a little bit notable with his recruitment, right? Hey, not a lot going on right now. I think that's a product of just the sport in terms of transfer portal, right? 2026 is so it's going to be a big spring for Charles Woodson Jr. I think a lot of schools probably just assume, hey, Michigan's going to be the team, but someone's going to have the opportunity to swoop in there, whether it be during this January contact period, whether it be during the spring evaluation period. I mean, he's a guy that has what it takes to start, on Saturdays at the Power 4 level.
And that team right now, I think, is Florida State. I connected with him a week or so ago, and he made it very clear, like Florida State is a big player in his recruitment. And he mentioned Syracuse. Those are really the top two. A lot of people are sleeping on them. And I think a lot of people sleep on Syracuse for a bunch of guys that they're involved with. So they're doing a really good job. I do want to get back to some of the guys announcing their decisions later this week. On Saturday on NBC at the Navy All-American Bowl, Devin Robertson, a guy that I've seen a bunch, watched him work out. I think he's a little undersized and that's probably the one slight for the kid. But you know what? He is here, ready to compete. He's got an incredible work ethic. You got Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Miami, and a few others pushing for Devin Robertson. Notre Dame was in there for a little while. My guess at this point would probably be the Sooners. I think they've been on him the longest, connecting with him, doing a really good job. But Devin Robertson, a little bit about the player.
Well, Tom, you just named 4 playoff teams, right?
Not bad.
Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, and Miami. What do they all have in common besides making the playoff? Point of attack, focused programs, right? They want to win in the trenches. You said it, Devin Robertson is a bit sawed off, right? But he is a stout nose, right? He is active in the middle. Mississippi 7A Region 3 Defensive Player of the Year as a junior. He slides gaps, crashes inside. These are the type of individuals that, you put him in a Georgia State uniform, he gets 250 snaps for PFF. Hey, Chris Hummer's tweeting about him being in the transfer portal, and he's got all these, opportunities from a financial standpoint. So those 4 programs all deciding, hey, We're going to get this guy in the building. This is a depth addition. He could be a starter. He could be a rotational player for us at some point down the line. Excited to see him this weekend. You can never have enough of these bodies, guys that can move in the middle, guys that, can be havoc creators there. And I think that's Devin Robertson.
There's something about that kid. I've seen him a couple times working out and just the nonstop motor. If there's offensive linemen here that are taking plays off and not bringing it the entire time, he is going to expose them because he's strong, he's powerful, he's a bull. There's just a lot to like there, man. I think that if he was a couple inches taller, I think that there'd be this kid across the country, 50+ offers. But as it stands now, Devin Robertson, a ton to like about him. We'll get to top 247 offensive lineman Reed Ramsey here shortly. But one more guy, and the next one up that's going to announce is Jahide Brown, top 247, or maybe just outside top 247, receiver out of the state of Kentucky. This is a kid that's been looking at Indiana, Vandy, Louisville, Alabama, and many others. A guy that had a really good junior season. We talked a little bit about him earlier, but Jahide Brown, just kind of some thoughts on him this week.
Yeah, chunk play machine, right? Catch and run specialist, guy that's evasive and hard to tackle. Led the state of Kentucky this season in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns. Also did some stuff in the return game, which was notable. Look, we brought up when I was on earlier, right? All these teams, like these big pterodactyl. Corners. Well, how do you counter them? You get these small, fast guys with the agility that are easy separators at the first and second levels. I think that is what stands out about Jahide Brown. I believe, and I'll lean on you here, it sounds like Indiana.
I like the Hoosiers.
In a good position here. And, Signetti, what he's been able to do here on the high school front, they're certainly getting some going there. And I think he fits what they want to do on offense as well.
Got Blair Angulo back here just firing away. Go to our blue board at 247sports.com, and we have a ton of recruiting updates. Blair, Mike Roach, a bunch of other guys here doing a great job of keeping that updated. Blair, what are we working on right now?
You guys just talked to Charles Woodson Jr. and I got a little snippet about, I don't know if you guys talked to him about Michigan and kind of the whole situation there. Obviously, a lot of moving parts. I think he is open to hearing from Kyle Whittingham and that new staff, the new DB coach, Gennaro Guilford, who comes over from BYU. A lot of the connections that he had out west. I think he's going to start to, potentially target some players in his own backyard of Los Angeles. But I think, obviously, Michigan has to be a national recruiting power, right? And, Charles was saying that he's open to communication. He's just trying to figure out, whether or not they're going to prioritize him. And obviously the new staff has to kind of look out for the schools or the players that they are looking for. He wants to get out to Florida State, Syracuse, a few other schools. Tennessee was another one he mentioned. Obviously a highly coveted player. And, it's funny, he's talking about his dad a little bit over there, just being all right and watching the film, back, not giving Pops a lot of credit, but man, that, wasn't he a baller back in the day?
That dude, he was, I think he's just being nice or just being funny, but that dude was fun to watch, man.
Yeah. And there's only one time I've ever used him as a player comp. You guys know who it was for?
Oh God.
Was it a safety or a corner?
It's for Travis Hunter. Who
all right. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
That one kind of hit.
Yeah.
Right,
you did okay.
Yeah, we don't.
Andrew Avis doesn't know what he's doing around here, according to a lot of the fans. Look, man, I want to take a position by position look here. I kind of brought up the just so people understand like the talent level that's going to be here. So the Andrew Ivins big board here. I touched a little bit about the quarterbacks, but I like your take. Just kind of both of you guys. What jumps out when you look at the quarterback set to play in this game?
Yeah, well, look, these all-star games have evolved, right? And Dante Moore 3 years ago was MVP here, right? Hoping to win a national championship. You walk around the hotel lobby, you see photos of Trevor Lawrence, CJ Stroud. It is getting increasingly harder and harder to get those individuals here, primarily because they're going to school early. They're in these quarterback competitions. I think we need to point out, hey, 5-star Faison Brandon, he was committed to play in this game. Unfortunately, injury, Tennessee wants him there. No need to risk it. Same thing with Diabell, the 5-star Texas commit. So we kind of had to pivot with what we wanted to do here. We got the 2 seniors. We already interviewed Briggs Cherry, Corey Daly, 4-sport athlete, 4-year starter, right down the road, headed to Pittsburgh. in our top 247. Gabe Brooks, Hudson Sanders, they love him on the scouting team, and a lot of people are rolling their eyes. Hey, Pittsburgh, Kenny Pickett was drafted out of there. Cade Bell, the offensive coordinator, what he was able to do with Eli Holstein, what he's able to do, Mason Heidel this season as a true freshman. So those are the two seniors. And then we're going after some juniors, some guys that we think, a lot of schools are going to pivot to. And right now, most of these college personnel recruiting departments, the focus is the transfer portal, right? We got the Tulsa House. We got, people not leaving the facilities. That's where the focus is. And what's going to happen once that portal closes, everything's going to turn to 2027. And I think there's going to be a shuffling of the quarterbacks. And Peter Bork, name to know, right? Number 8 quarterback right now in the top 247. He is committed to Michigan. I can't wait till we get him in here. 8-0 as a junior there at Tabor Academy. This kid is polished. He's mobile, makes a lot of anticipatory throws, extremely, extremely, extremely accurate. So he's committed to Michigan. He was committed to Sharon Moore's staff. He knew he was going to come in behind Bryce Underwood. But Kyle Whittingham's now there, and we keep talking about that. So he's one where a lot of schools are in the DMs, are talking to his representation. So I think there's a ton of buzz there with Peter
And just
Bork.
quickly about Peter Bork, there's a lot of Michigan didn't have to take him that early. They were firmly in the mix for Elijah Haven, but that's how high Michigan was on Bork. He was a top guy on the board. It was him, literally him and Elijah Haven. They decided we're not, bird in the hand. We're not missing on Peter Bork.
Yeah, former lacrosse player. Just the more I've thought about it, like we had to make an odd sheet for MVP on Saturday. I put Peter Bork right up there. The other young underclassmen, you mentioned Malachi Ziegler, committed to SMU. Hey, SMU was in the college football playoff 2 years ago. Rhett Lashley has had a ton of success in the ACC since that school moved into that conference. Kevin Jennings at some point is going to be off. There's going to need to be a new quarterback there. It's probably going to be Ty Hawkins, who we had last year in the Navy All-American Bowl. But this Malachi Ziegler guy, boomer bust. That's how I would describe him, right? You see him in a camp setting. He's awesome. He's got an athletic frame. Another multi-sport athlete, notice that with the theme. The issue is on Friday nights, everything we've seen him do in shorts and a t-shirt, it hasn't translated to more wins on the field there in Louisiana. Internally, scouting department, big back and forth. Well, hey, he doesn't have the best receivers around him. Well, this week, Malachi Ziegler's throwing to some 5-stars. He's throwing to a Chris Henry. He's throwing to a Caden Dixon-White. He's throwing to a Nic Lennear. So what does that look like? And then the final two, both 3-star prospects right now, both on top 247 watch. Carson White, athletic kid at Iowa Colony, 96 explosion score from Next Gen Prospects. This kid could play college baseball. He might be drafted in the MLB draft. Guy that RPO game, he can run around, he can move around. Fired up to see him. Colin Klein, Kansas State involved there. And then finally, Blair, in your region, Will Mensel, big athletic passer out of the state of Arizona. This is the one to circle, right? I think as more of these new offensive staffs get settled, they get in the meeting room, they pull up the film. I think a lot of schools are going to offer them, and I feel convicted in saying that, Tom, because what happened at Auburn, Alex Galesh, that USF staff, they show up. Will Mensel's one of their first offers in the 2027 cycle. So I like this group because I think there's a little bit of everything. All these guys are big and tall. All of them had really good seasons, and I want to see, which one is the one we're talking about come Sunday.
Anything that jumps out for you for the quarterback position? I mean, even on the recruiting front, Will Mensel, I feel like a lot of people are talking about UNC and a few others.
He's been blowing up. He had offers from Syracuse, Missouri, Oregon, Auburn during the season, put up over 4,500 yards there in the highest classification in the state of Arizona. Chandler High School produced players like Brett Hundley and N'Keal Harry, Chase Lucas, who's in the NFL still, Bryce Perkins, just to name a few. And when you think about the quarterback position in the NFL, I mean, you got Spencer Rattler, Tyler Shuck, Brock Purdy, all products of the state of Arizona.
Drop some knowledge.
Kyle Allen, the list kind of goes on, and I think we all know this. It's a warm weather state, and it's a warm weather climate where they can train year round, and these guys are playing baseball and they're playing different sports. So, I really like what he's able to do on the field. He's a dual threat player, like bar none, rushed for over 700 yards. when the pocket collapses, when things go wrong at the line of scrimmage, he's going to make plays. He has a really terrific arm. I like what he's able to do down the field. He's got the vision. He hits his guy, Jai Jones, there in that secondary quite often. I think a game like this, and I'm kind of like a glass half full guy. When other players drop out and we're able to add a Will Menzel to this roster, even kind of remember Lincoln Keenholt a couple years ago where he was a late ad. I think you're able to kind of see new things, and you're able to see how this player develops and how he's able to perform. And hey, maybe this does catapult him in the top 24/7. And what if he does have one of those crazy plays? Damon Williams is another one who's making noise at the college level. They just keep kind of popping up in my brain as we talk. But I think a Will Menzel with a great performance on Saturday can really elevate himself heading into the ever-important January contact period, the spring eval period. I think this is a player who can really see a stock rise.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm excited to see him, really, because of the praise that you guys have both been giving him for such a long time. But for me, it's Malachi Ziegler, because kind of stood on the table for that one. There's something about you ranked him extremely high early on, and it was a lot of potential and a lot of upside there. And he hasn't won a ton of high school games. They were 1 in something or 2 in something last year. There's a lot of potential and almost a lot of mystery about the kid, but there's something about Malachi that I love him as a person. I think he's athletic. He's accurate with the football. I think surrounded by the talent he's going to be surrounded by this week, there's just something about that kid, man. I think he's going to have a great week as a 27 underclassman headed to SMU. I want to pivot to the running back position. Really good group here. And again, really quickly on the quarterbacks, yes, it would have been great to have Diabell, Faison Brandon, Keyshawn Henderson, but you know what? It's good. It would look great on Saturday. You have all these future stars, but you know what? There's something so exciting about having kind of these unknowns in 27 that I just wanted to add that this roster, this class of quarterbacks really came together. So again, Andrew, great job there. Running backs, what jumps out for you at that position?
It's another mix, right? I
Yeah.
think we got 4 seniors, 2 juniors. Where my eyes go is to Jerry Beard. Number 4 running back right now in the class of 2027. He's at Prince Avenue Christian there in the state of Georgia. UGA legacy. Garrison Hurst is his grandfather, former Bulldog. I love this kid. I think he's got 3 down potential. I think he has creativity, can make guys miss. I think he's kind of the total package right now. It's a strong year, strong cycle for running backs. When you look at 2027, David Gabriel Georges, Landon Kalis Williams, a lot of guys be like Jerry Beard to me, big fan. And that recruitment, just like with Charles Woodson Jr., a lot of people assuming, okay, Georgia, but it seems like he wants to explore his options. So I'm a big fan of him. And then John Hebert. You don't know the name, you'll know it eventually. Headed to Houston, going to play for Willie Fritz, a guy that Gabe Brooks brought up to the scouting department hey, we think this guy's pretty good. Electric there as a senior outside of Dallas. He's going to be the running mate with Keyshawn Henderson there at Houston. He's a kid I heard that doesn't have a cell phone. Family's just got a family iPad at home. I think he's kind of a unique cat, so I'm excited to kind of pick his brain, and I think he's going to be an electric one. And then, fun group. Again, same thing. A little bit of flavor all over the board.
With Beard, it's been kind of interesting because initially a lot of people pointed to Georgia, then some people were talking about Tennessee and Oregon, but his top 5 really kind of moves around a lot. Oklahoma making a move there, so he was initially looking to commit around this time, but I think that as he continues to blow up and pick up more offers, and I think he just wants to make one decision. He's wired that kind of way. He doesn't want to be the flip-flopper. So Jerry Bird initially, I don't know. I want to give the edge to Georgia, but I think Tennessee is not being talked enough about. But what about the running back position do you like, Blair?
Deshaun Rideau is a player that I'm very familiar with out in the Los Angeles area, will stay home and play for the USC Trojans. A really interesting nugget about him is that he was kind of leading the charge about keeping a lot of those guys home, and they were hosting commit parties and they were hosting a signing day special where they invited a lot of the local signees to come and kind of celebrate being a part of this movement, which we've talked about at length, right, with Chad Bowden and what he wanted to do as soon as he arrived in Los Angeles. I think Deshaun Rideau not only was a big-time recruiter for this program, but he was also, I think, a player that we can now look at from a stylistic standpoint and a style fitting standpoint. Is he's going to bring speed to that offense. They have mostly been, and they've kind of leaned into the in between the tackles, right? They want to fit that Big Ten footprint. They want to be able to kind of be that physical football team and kind of reshape their brand. But I think Deshaun Rideau brings some of the speed that they need. That I think it's going to be a major asset for him to be able to see the field early on. So I think among the running backs in this group, probably the fastest one this week. I'm excited to see how he's able to kind of get out in space. Really good pass catcher. He's been very versatile at Oaks Christian out in California. And, I think for him this week to be able to show some of that foot speed, to be able to show some of the agility and just his a wiggle in that second level is going to be key.
It's funny you say that. Literally going through my notes from the senior seasons, view him as a tempo changer, right? Coaches can ride him when he's hot. I would echo that as well. And I think he could play that role early. We say it all the time. Easiest position to get on the field. Wide receiver and running back. Those are the two as true freshmen, guys that continue to kind of break through.
I want to move on to the wide receiver position. It is deep. There's a lot of people, a lot of players at the position, but just kind of for me, I'll lead it off. One guy that I've always been a huge fan of is, and again, both you guys know him extremely well, Blair, especially being on the West Coast. Madden Williams is a guy that just, he fires me up, man. I don't know what the testing times are going to look like. I don't know what the measurables are going to look like in terms of like wingspan and everything like that. But like, there's just something about this kid where he is one of the safest bets, in my opinion, to just be a really good college receiver. I think A&M got a really good one there in Madden Williams. Just every time I see him, he's making plays. He had a great offseason on the 7-on-7 circuit. Just so much to like about him. But just big picture, like what are you looking at the wide receiver position, the kind of group that you helped bring here to San Antonio?
Yeah, I mean, Madden Williams reminds me a lot of Brandon Ennis. Like, that is my comp for him. And we've seen Brandon for Ohio State, and I think they're similar polish, like big physical guys. You can play him at the Z position, you can play him at the X position. So I want to see him kind of separate against these defensive backs. We've talked so much about Caden Dixon-Wyatt. We've talked so much about Chris Henry. I mean, there's some other guys on here. Joel Wyatt, I believe he's going to work out at wide receiver this week. The Tennessee signee right there in the Volunteer State. Some of the best measurements so far that have come through on him. Tennessee likes him on defense. They think he's going to be, a linebacker, boundary safety. Some think he can grow into an edge rusher. Kind of reminds me of Sony Styles if he's going to play defense. He's one. Tristen Keys, his running mate's going to be here. And then, Tom, some guys that aren't getting enough love that haven't been mentioned at all. Jaden Petit, Oklahoma signee. Statistically, maybe the best senior season of any wide receiver there in America. Jordan Clay, the Washington signee, local San Antonio kid. He's returning this year. He was a flip from Baylor for Jed Fish in that staff. Nasir Rankin, the Illinois signee. You want to talk about a basketball player? This guy had the opportunity to do that in college. We've never seen him anywhere, so he shows up here. A guy that's a long-time commit there. And then there's some underclassmen. I'll keep saying the name. Nic Lennear, field demeanor, swag, confidence, two-way player, transferred from Miami Northwestern into Carroll City. His recruitment's a little interesting. Not a ton of offers right now. I had a Power 4 defensive coordinator that was in the college football playoff. He told me this back in May. We were just kind of trading notes on guys in the state of Florida. And he's like, "Have you been by Miami Northwestern?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, everyone talks about the Calvin Russell. But he's like, whoever that number 2 player is, I do not want to have to defend that guy. He's that good. And that's D coordinator at a CFP team. So, I mean, we have him ranked super high. A classic Miami-Dade playmaker. And, another one where I think he could have a big week.
Nic Lennear is going to especially when we get to the competitive, like the one-on-ones, like that dude is going to make a lot of really, really high-level DBs look foolish. Nic Lennear is the real deal. Blair, what you got for me at the wide receiver position?
Sequel Patterson. I saw him a lot during the
we did his commitment,
but I did a lot of, or I saw him a lot in the offseason camp circuit, the 7-on-7 tournaments. South Carolina, I think, got a really, really good in-state victory there to kind of reel off some of the other programs that were pursuing him. And you know, kind of a little nugget here from a recruiting sense. I mean, this is a player who was hopping on cross-country flights seemingly every weekend to go work out with a California-based 7-on-7 team. I mean, when that doesn't kind of speak to the motivation and the competitive spirit and just like the work ethic that a player like this has to consistently get on a flight that's going to be 5 hours there, 6 hours back. I mean, that's really impressive to me. And, you know, when a guy goes into the weight room or goes into the meeting room or he's competing for a spot, you kind of have to bet on a sequel Patterson, you know, because he's already shown that he's going to go at great lengths to be the guy. And, I'm just really impressed with his compete level. I think he has a really good feel for his own body and just how fluid he moves and how he shades and how he kind of bodies up DBs. He might not be the biggest receiver, but he has a really good feel for how he's going to box out to make the catch at the catch radius. I think he at the catch point, it's hard for me to find a player in this 2026 class that is as impressive as he was, because he will go up for the football. He'll dive for the football if he needs to. He will snatch it away from DBs. I've been super impressed with Sequel Patterson every time I've seen him.
One of the most impressive kids. Do you get around him? You mentioned we did his commitment at the OT7 finals. Yeah.
I mean,
Go ahead.
South Carolina,
Please.
you know, they got to figure it out on offense. Right?
Yeah.
And I agree with you. You know, we initially thought, hey, maybe he's more of a defensive back. I think of what I've settled on as a slot receiver, potential return specialist. And, you know, Blair, I think people roll their eyes when we like throw all these numbers. It's like, oh, he's a 6'7" high jumper. And, you know, he's got a basketball offer for Radford. You said it right there. And I just pulled up what I have on the front facing profile. I said exceptional bounce and can leap into a different stratosphere. If you watch this kid play, like, you know, he might come in at 5'8", but dude, he plays like he's 6'5". Like he can go up and over guys. So it reminds me of Jalen Lane on the Washington Commanders, guy that was also from, I believe, the Palmetto State. They can use him in the return game. What I like about him being here is he's a guy that reclassified, right? Was originally in 2027, moving into 2026. So this is a big week for Patterson and for Shane Beamer in the Gamecocks. So yeah, I love how you highlighted him. That's a great shout out by you.
I want to get to 2 5-stars in a second, and I'll tee you up for Tristen Keys, and I'll tee you up for Chris Henry. But I got to show some love to a guy when I was living in Indiana, Jerquaden Guilford, a guy that's continued to get better and better. Look, man, I was his biggest critic. He was put on my radar as an 8th grader, and then as a 9th grader, he showed so much potential and polish. And then there was a little bit of some question marks when it came to the work ethic and really like taking that the lid off of the potential and the upside. But man, he put it together this offseason and had a great senior season. And I mean, I love the fit there at Ohio State. I mean, I liked it a little bit more when Heartline was there, but I think the way Ohio State recruited him, and great job by them the entire way. But Jerquaden Guilford is a name that a lot of people may not know on the national radar, the casual college football fan. He's a guy that I'm so excited about because, again, I've seen him. I've watched the growth. I mean, it's just been so fun to watch. So a lot to like there.
I think the name of the game with him is sudden.
Yeah.
Right. And you said it, like UC Report, the guys, Billy Tucker, you know, they do an excellent job of getting all the data on these guys. And one time, you know, what we look at on there is, all right, where does their UC score like rank in terms of the testing? He's like, he's 97th percentile or something like that. So, you know, the athlete is there, and you're right. He has rounded into the form. That is why he has moved into the top 247. And it's going to be another one where, hey, what does this look like in the one-on-ones? What does this look like when this is ramped up?
Tristen Keys does not need to be here, but the flights are booked. The hotel is booked. He is expected to be here to work out, which really, knowing Tristen, it doesn't shock us.
Yeah, and I think it's important with him because he missed a lot of time as a senior due to injury. And, you know, I go back to last year when He was out at the volleyball,
Yep.
flew to Battle Miami, competed. To me, he's the perfect fit for what Josh Heupel wants to do on offense, right? He's a vertical guy, another one where he can go up and get the football, snaps guys off on breaking routes. He's been fun, but I think I'd go to sleep a little bit better if Tristen Keys comes out here and looks like the Tristen Keys he could beat, just because that senior year was so kind of muddied by the injury. So it's one where you don't want to overthink it, but secretly deep down inside me, I want him to come out here and just roast some DBs, and we'll be feeling a lot better.
Chris Henry Jr. does not, again, another one that does not need to be here. His future is in Columbus at Ohio State, and it got a little dicey down the stretch, slowed that process down. Oregon jumping in there, a lot of buzz about USC, but just Blair, you know him better than anybody. Chris Henry, just what have you seen from him that should have Ohio State fans so fired up?
Yeah, I was about to say, almost didn't end up in Columbus, right? I think what should have Buckeyes fans excited is that he's going to bring in the new era, right? New receivers coach, kind of a change in guard there in Zone 6. I know Andrew likes to bring that up a ton, but he took a leap forward in his progression as a senior. Had the injury bug as a junior, missed most of his junior season after moving out to California to play at Mater Dei. But I think when the time came and when the moment arrived for him to step up in his progression, to step up in his development, to make plays when he needed to, he did that. And, they had that big game down in Florida where it was on national TV, and it was kind of like his statement. And I don't want to call it a coming out party, but it was certainly an announcement by him to say, hey, remember me? My name is Chris Henry Jr. Yeah. Then during the season, he continued every week fighting double teams. It didn't matter if he was matching up against a safety that was kind of shadowing him and covering him over the top. If he told the DBs that the ball was coming his way and they threw it to him, he was still coming down with the football. He's super impressive as just a natural pass catcher. The thing that stands out to me about him is just he's so fluid and natural in the sense that he doesn't move his arms much, right? Like he's a late catcher. Like he doesn't really tip things off to the DBs. He makes those acrobatic catches. And when you think about what they're going to need there in that receiver room with Jeremiah Smith departing after next year, if everything goes well for him, there's no reason why Chris Henry Jr. shouldn't be the next WR1 in Columbus based on what we saw and hopefully based on what we see, because like you, Andrew, I think I'm going to be secretly, doing a little like fist pump underneath the desk whenever Chris Henry makes a play, because he does have that sort of potential. And those are the types of guys that you root for.
It's funny that a lot of people were talking about like, maybe he's more of a tight end. He's not really done, because you watch him on 7-on-7 before his senior season. It's like, he's kind of just there, kind of doing his thing, almost maybe like he was bored. I think we got bored.
Yeah. Right? And I think we had a little bit of prospect fatigue in a sense, right? Like there were guys sometimes where Tristen Keys kind of comes to mind as well, right? We talk about them at length for years, and at times in this industry, we get caught up with the new flashy, bright object that is in front of us that we didn't know existed. But then we remember that a Chris Henry still exists. And, I think this is another part of the process for him, is to say, hey, like, remember me, I'm still that guy. And I think that's what excites me most about him this week.
Tight end, Ahmad Hudson. I mean, I know you could probably riff on him forever. But how about Malik Howard? I mean, he was a guy that in my backyard in Tennessee that I've seen a couple times over in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, a late ad, but a top 247 guy in 2027. Any initial thoughts ahead of this week and just kind of overall take on him?
A guy that is finding his name on a lot of recruiting boards.
Oh, yeah.
I think we shot him up in the rankings. Notre Dame's offered, Auburn's offered. I think he's an F projection. I think he's a guy that's going to contribute in a passing attack. Lines up in the slot, lines up out wide, detached, fluid. I don't think he's maybe the most explosive route runner, but he's got soft hands, good timing, yields a large web. And I think what really stands out about him is the fact that he blocks, right?
Yeah.
He needs some time in the weight room, but he's a guy where the arrow is clearly pointing up. And I think he fits a lot of these like spread attacks where, again, you motion them, kind of hunt some matchups there. So, my perspective, right, if I had to like list these guys out, that these juniors that are showing up where you don't know what's going on in the recruitment, he's one where I'm like, to me personally, it's all right, what is going on? Because who is involved? Because I think he's someone that has a chance to be an impact player and an all-conference type of talent, in the Big Ten, in the SEC.
I was going to say real quickly just about Malik. A lot of the buzz, obviously, last cycle for Vanderbilt was 5-star quarterback Jared Curtis. I want Vanderbilt fans to start getting excited about Malik Howard, because I think there's an opportunity where he might end up at Vandy alongside another 2027 guy that you like a ton in top 247 wide receiver Keyshawn Bowman. Right now, I would call Vanderbilt the favorite for both.
Probably text Barton Simmons right now, man. he told me back in August they don't recruit the high profile guys. That'd be like 3 top 247 guys after Landon.
I had a Big Ten recruiting source also kind of point out that from a physical standpoint, there's not going to be a lot there to refine, because I think obviously, right, you think about his whole senior year progression, getting him on campus early for early enrollment, really polished already as a pass catcher and as a blocker. So the versatility is there. And what I was told is this is a player who's going to have that developmental year physically this next cycle, and then he should be ready to go. And, what was it, Eli Stowers, right? That made a ton of plays for the Commodores, and, looking at
I don't know if Malik Howard's in like the Eli Stowers,
but I mean, looking at
athletic, but I see it.
If they could follow that up.
Yeah, that's where my vision went as well. Like, you put on the tape for Malik Howard, dude, he has this insane one-handed catch. The body control there, I can see the similarities. Absolutely, I would echo.
And remember, we're talking about a Malik Howard that is a finished product, or a Eli Stowers that is a finished product.
Former quarterback.
A Malik Howard is probably further along in his own progression, and that's kind of where, if you're a Vanderbilt fan, it should excite you, right? Because
I think you're a fan of anyone. I thought Cooper Patagna brought up something interesting on the 24/7 Sports transfer portal show last week, and Chris Summers mentioned it. Matt said it's just some of these tight ends kind of carry a higher price tag than you would anticipate if you're looking for a guy. And to your point, Malik Howard, you think he can play him as a freshman. So it's a little money ball with the roster. You're not asking him to be tight end 1. Hey, but can you come be tight end 2? Can you be used in that type of way? So yeah, I certainly see that player.
Let's look at the offensive line. We can talk about the tackles. We can talk about the interior guys, kind of lump them all together, but just kind of overall, I think, there's some, we talked about guys like Felix Ojo. We've talked about Bryce Gilmore. Just going to cook for 20 minutes on the offensive line. We talked about Malachi Lee. We talked about a couple of these guys, but who haven't we talked about that fans should know about?
Princeton Uwafa.
Yep. Uwafo.
Yeah. Dude, he wears 350 like I wear 180. Oh my God. Tennessee commit 2027 in-state prospect. I had a hunch he was kind of a dude.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, let's invite this guy. And just based off the measurements alone, I think we hit that out of the park. Joshua Samapel. Through this building right now.
We wouldn't have missed him.
Verified at 6'8", right? He is a tower, athletic tackle in the state of Georgia there. Bulldogs battling South Carolina for him. He's a kid that had one of the more gruesome injuries that I've seen in terms of an ACL as a sophomore. I thought it was a career ender. Came back excellent as a junior there at Douglas County. He went up against Bryce Perry Wright at Buford. They don't make a lot of guys like him. So those are some of them for me. Talking with Gabe Brooks over there, he says Malachi Lee's probably your alpha dog of the all lobby team just based on his measurement. So once again, a big group, right? Big people are hard to block, or big people win in this sport, and that's what we do here at the Navy All-American Bowl.
Nastiest offensive lineman I was able to see this offseason was Jax Tanner, who will play on the interior at BYU after his 2-year church mission. I kind of pulled up some film here. Just a nasty kid, reminds me a lot of Jackson Powers Johnson, who ended up winning, was it the Remington at Oregon, and was a high draft pick, which is kind of rare to see out of the center position now with the Oakland, or not the Oakland Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders. Yeah, RIP. But I just think this is the prototypical BYU offensive lineman. They're nasty in the trenches. They've been able to kind of have that identity since they moved over to the Big 12 as one of the more physical teams. They kind of have to get over the Texas Tech bug. They lost twice to them this year, and they were outmanned in the trenches. So Jax Tanner should have BYU fans really excited, I think, about the future there. I think he has the potential to be an all-conference type of center. I'm excited to see what he looks like after the mission. Sometimes that's one of the variables that maybe holds us back from crowning a player that does intend to go on a mission, because you just don't know where that body's going to go. Sometimes there are the weight training restrictions. There's the dietary restrictions. There's the kind of being away from football for so long that you wonder what that's going to look like. So with a Jax Tanner, I think he just loves the game, and I think he loves moving people, and he sees a guy in front of him and he wants to bring pain to that guy. So I don't know if he's ever going to lose that, even if he is spreading the gospel and kind of wearing a tie for the next 2 years. But I think he's going to be really special in Provo. And this is the best ever recruiting class for BYU. I think he's one of the cornerstones of what they were able to build.
A former All-American, because you're just talking about the mission trip, you're talking about coming back after a year or two, but Gatlin Bear is a guy. What kind of buzz have you gathered just with his expected return to college football?
Well, I mean, I think everyone hopes that the speed is still there, right? He was known as the speed kid. I think Oregon is, if he does, it sounds like he will end up with the Ducks. That's always the question mark, because some of these players are re-recruitable after they return. But, I think they need another speed guy there. They've had kind of a prototype receiver, right? They have a style. Look at a DeCorian Moore, and they had injuries with like Gary Bryant. Evan Stewart was hurt. I think they need a bigger, faster receiver out wide. Cooper Perry kind of fits that mold, but he's not as quick or as twitchy. So I think Gatlin can really fill a need for them as early as next year, as long as physically he's there and he's kind of regained some of that speed that made him so electric. He's obviously a big time track kid as well. So that's a great point by you, because I think we forget about some of these guys that do go on the mission and then they come back. I think he's got a chance to be really special. We just have to know who the quarterback's going to be throwing the football to him next year out in Oregon. Dylan Raiola could be the one, right? That's been the buzz right now with the Ducks and the Nebraska transfer. So, it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, actually, when you're talking about Oregon landing a big body, that's why I kind of really liked the fit of Chris Henry for such a while when Oregon was so almost cocky that they were going to get that one done. And I just thought about, man, him on the same field with a Gatlin Bear, with a DeCorian Moore, man, like that's good luck. I mean, that would have probably forced Dante Moore to come back and want to throw to those guys. But let's stay in the trenches. Ivans, we will look at the defensive line. Man, we were talking about how impressive and how big the mass of the offensive line, but there are some dudes when you're looking at the defensive linemen, the edge rushers. Anything jump out to you? Who are you excited to see? Or you can take this however you want.
Are we talking edges or are we talking?
No, we can just combine them both. Combine them both. Yeah. Yeah.
One of Blair's individuals, a big riser for us. I remember hitting up Blair and I was like, hey, JD Hill, I think this kid's pretty good. What do you think? He agreed. Signed with Washington. That recruitment was all over the place. West Virginia was all the way out.
Well, he was originally committed to Northern Arizona, right?
I didn't know that.
And so I talked to someone at Northern Arizona, and they're like, "Yeah, there's no way we're hanging on to this kid because he blew up substantially, right? Like 20 tackles for loss, like through the first 6 or 7 games, was single-handedly dominating up front. I think the traits are going to be really important with him. He's got that quick twitch motor that right off the snap can kind of get through the line and attack those gaps. And UW, again, one of those teams that had their best ever recruiting class. This was a huge win for them late. West Virginia was involved. ASU was involved. Utah had offered him.
There were some other schools that came in there.
ASU was in there.
So he's one, and these two guys are going to be scored as like late invites because they're we had some individuals back out, some schools be like, hey, we don't want that guy to play, but the two Miami boys, Keyshawn Stansel out of the state of North Carolina, helped Clayton, play for a state championship there. Young kid, exceptional physical features. I think with what Mario Cristobal, Corey Heatherman want to do, I mean, he fits the Hurricane system to a T, upfield push. He's one, and then Ashari Charles out of Venice High School, my wife's alma mater. Another young guy. Like, both these guys are dense, ready to go. And they're players where you don't want to overthink it. So I'm excited to see those two up close in person. I mean, we're going to see it on Thursday night. Miami's front seven. Well, hey, here's two young pups in the system. And you think about that group, Justin Scott, who's coming along, former 5-star. He was in this game 2 years ago.
Ezekiel Ayangbale is a guy that was going to announce here at the game. He was getting close. He's not going to commit yet, but he's a guy that I've seen a couple times. I remember seeing him with Mike Roach in New Orleans at an event. He's a guy that, man, I love the motor. I like the length. I mean, he's good, really, really good, solid player that I think is going to have a nice week. I'm glad you brought up Stansel because everybody at Miami raves about him, thinks he's a first-round pick. I know he's ranked appropriately right around that spot, but just a lot. We talked about Devin Robertson, Tristan Givens. I mean, so many good players, man.
You were mentioning, South Carolina a little bit earlier. They got two guys in the front seven. You see what they've done at that position group. Aiden Harris, inside-outside guy. Julian Walker, the flip from Michigan, long-limbed, out of Dutch Fork there. So, yeah, those are the ones I got my eyes on.
And how about Carter Gooden, who announced with us on the National Signing Day show last month during the early signing period, flipping from UCLA to Tennessee. And, I think a player that we're higher on, right, than the industry just based on his upside, and a Canadian kid who was playing his high school football in the Northeast. So not a lot of eyeballs on him, not a lot of exposure to him, but did have a really nice offseason in the camp circuit that kind of opened some eyes. So, this be, in a way, his coming out party as well, to kind of stamp himself as a player to watch in the SEC in the years to come.
Shout out Brian Doan, national analyst, 24/7 Sports, the Carter Gooden insider for months as his recruitment was ever changing. Tennessee, Vanderbilt getting involved, UCLA eventually flipping to Tennessee. Ivans, let's look at the linebacker position. I talked a little bit about Braden Rouse earlier, a guy I was pretty excited about. But there's a couple guys on this list. We had Kenneth Simon. Take this. Yeah.
Like the sneaky best positional group here. And I don't even think we intended to do that. But I think we've kind of dialed in what we're looking for at this position. We want big, long guys, right? I've said a two-way production. Adam Bywater, another BYU commit. Dude, I love this kid. Former safety. I think he had 6 interceptions there in the state of Utah. Another guy that's going to go on a mission. Plays rugby. He's up for the Navy All-American Bowl Man of the Year award. Very active in the community. Man, he was one of my favorite tape studies as we kind of did that rankings update right before signing day. Terry Wiggins, Virginia Tech. Now we're playing all the hits, right? It was Washington just signed their highest ranked recruiting class ever. Who was the other school you were talking about? BYU. Virginia Tech did with James Franklin there. Terry Wiggins was a longtime Penn State commit. Hudson Sanderson, the scouting team, loves this kid. We've never measured him. We've never seen him in person, but one where, man, he runs it and he thumps there in the state of Pennsylvania. So he's expected to be here representing the Hokies, and I think he represents kind of the new blood there in Blacksburg, the caliber of athlete they're going to get. I don't know if they're going to have a lunch pail mentality, but, this is a guy that would fit, the Virginia Tech we all grew up watching. So guys, another one where it's like a basketball team. You got Sean Fox out of Indianapolis. He reminds me of Eric Gentry. You got J.J. Bush, a little pit ball, signed with Missouri out of Alabama. This is a really, really fun group. And I didn't even realize it until we sat down and started doing this.
How about Taven Epps? He does play basketball.
Yeah.
So you could definitely put him at small forward. He reminds me of Anthony Barr. I know that our player comp is not Anthony Barr, but I think
Baron Browning. Don't hate on the player comp.
but I know I love it, but I think he's going to be more of a pass rusher down the road, and in the NFL, I think that's going to be his calling card if he makes it to the pros. Taven Epps has a ton of length. He's at his best when he's the aggressor and he's going after the football. I love what he's able to do in space, and he's been able to show that in the 7-on-7 circuit. I think he works on his footwork. That basketball helps. But when you think about him getting after the quarterback in a few years, especially in that Oklahoma defense, that I think should really excite Sooner fans. I know he's going to be a little distracted on Saturday trying to announce a commitment, but I do think that, Taven Epps, from just an upside standpoint, he will look like a 26 out there. I mean, that kid will not look out of place as a 27.
For those just catching up, Taven Epps, you talked earlier about Oklahoma being a good spot there. I want, just quickly, the duo headed to Tennessee, Braden Rouse, TJ White, state champion, just looks. I was watching that game. He was playing against Braylon Womack, who ended up at Mississippi State. Like, those two teams were battling it out, man. TJ White was all over the field. Really excited to see him this week. Ivans, real quickly, because this was a guy that I was hoping we would get him to hop on here because his recruitment has just absolutely not taken off yet. But Sean Fox out of Indiana, you texted me and we were so fired up about him.
Yeah, he's at Warren Central there, really good program in the Hoosier State. Yeah, I think he came in. Hold on, let me pull it up. The measurements were what we thought they were. Yeah, 6'4.5", 218, 81-inch wingspan. A guy that fits a 3-4 and he could be an edge rusher. I think his ability to bend, his ability to close, his ability to attack that corner, it really stands out. But he could also drop him back and allow him to clog up these passing lanes like Eric Gentry has done at Arizona State, at USC. So he's kind of a unique body type. The regional schools that have dialed in recruiting departments they've offered, I would agree, Tom. I think he's someone over the next few months where the tenders are going to be pouring in.
And we're talking, his offer list is Cincinnati, Kansas, Michigan State, Minnesota, Purdue, West Virginia, Bowling Green, and Toledo. Like, this is not a case where we're offer watching and giving guys good rankings and inviting them to the All-American Bowl. I mean, this is a really good evaluation that I think in a couple months we might see Notre Dame, Ohio State, Michigan, and all the others jumping into the mix. Want to move on to the secondary. We'll look at cornerbacks. We won't lump them together. I feel like that bothered you. We will stick with cornerbacks only. We will stick at cornerback. We just had Ohio State signee Jordan Thomas come through here. Looked great. But what's jumping out to you at the cornerback position?
A lot of kids from California. Let Blair cook here, man.
It's a great 27 class out west at corner. You could even clump in a player like Hayden Stepp, who you just watched down in Orlando. I think this is a truly really great collection of talent at the corner spot, and they're all kind of jostling for that number one spot. You got Danny Lang, who's been coming off of an injury, Duvet Williams, who's a multi-sport and a two-way athlete at Gardena Serra, Brandon Arrington, who we touched on earlier in the show, the borderline 5-star prospect, who's headed to Texas A&M from the San Diego area, Haven Finney, who a lot of schools kind of lost out on there at the end to LSU as he, kind of dealt with some of the coaching changes with the Tigers, but he reclassified from 2027, so he could have easily been in that group as well. Jacob Whitehead is kind of a player that missed half of his junior season due to the transfer rules out in California, but has a lot of upside and physical traits as well that we like. The one I do want to highlight is Danny Lang, because I think he probably carries the higher upside and is probably the most projectable.
Blair, fire me up, man. That's how I see it in California as well.
I just, from a projection standpoint, there is a lot there in terms of like just covering all your bases, because he's going to be able to play safety if you need him to. He can play some nickel. I love his change of direction, his compete level, the way he attacks the football near the line of scrimmage. I think based on the guys that I saw, and I saw all these during the season, he was the most physically impressive one in terms of his reaction speed and in terms of his awareness. And we've seen it with true freshman cornerbacks and guys that are making plays at the next level, the Trent McDuffies, if you will, right? Another Trinity League product. Danny Lang, I think, checks off a lot of those same boxes. A guy that's playing probably like a snap or two ahead of things, right? Like he's dissecting things as they happen, and nothing's really kind of get behind him. I think the world of him. We're still waiting, I think, on some measurements and some verifieds and a lot of that stuff. But based on the eye test, Danny Lang is the one.
Yeah, he was awesome when Matter came down to Fort Lauderdale for the Broward Showcase. I think like 3 or 4 pass breakups, locates the football, natural coverage skills, contact speed is there for a guy that's he's lean, right? Maybe not as lean as some of these other guys, but he isn't the biggest dude, but I think he can play field corner. I think he can play him in the box. I think he can play over the top. Versatility, you can put him in the nickel as well. I love that one. Tom, when you weren't here, we had Danny Odom.
Oh.
Man, I love the confidence for him. Him showing up, excellent senior season. He's got all the tools, all the traits, all that.
And he said line up anyone in front of him, right? Like you love to hear that.
I think he said it was a marathon.
Yep.
Got to keep proving myself. That's a little refreshing. His high school teammate Devin Jackson signed with Oregon. Kind of touched a little bit on him. When I look at this DB group, if I had to who are going to be the head, like the stars, I think those two. They're guys that are in the 26 cycle, but had a ton of exposure to them. Allen Evans out of the state of Kentucky, 2027. I'm so excited to see this individual. Big features, zone corner, anticipation. I think some college staffs are a little hung up on the speed. Put him in a bump and run, right? You put him in the right system. Sounds like he could be getting closer to making a decision there as well. Allen Evans, a lot of schools interested. I don't know, Tom, if you got one.
Yeah, he just dropped his top 10. But I'm watching Louisville, Vanderbilt. They've done a really good job. Tennessee, Penn State, Alabama, all very much in play for Allen Evans. Excited to see him. There's some really good players from the state of Kentucky here, but
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, Allen Evans is a guy that, like, I love the kid, first and foremost, but he's an incredible talent, and I think one of these schools is going to be getting a good one. And stay tuned. I would say very soon.
One we didn't touch on was Aaron Washington. He will be announcing his commitment during the game, and he's been dealing with an injury. I think if he does choose USC, I think you touched on it a little bit, Andrew. Like the USC selective process now in the 2027 class, since it's going to be a smaller group, they could essentially draft guys, right, and handpick some of these. The DB group specifically could be incredible. You think about them having a Brendan Lockhart already in this game, but if they do land Aaron Washington, they're the leader for Duvet Williams, who's also in this game. They're a leader for Honor Fa'alave Johnson, the number 1 safety in the country, who was a part of this game but had to bow out due to injury. They're a leader for Gavin Williams, the top 24/7 safety out of Laverne, California. I mean, that's 4 guys that you build around. And then they're a finalist for Danny Lang as well, if they do want to go to a 5-man secondary among a group that's probably going to be in the 15-17 range in this class. I mean, that could be right now on paper one of the best ever DB hauls out west, at least that I could remember, and nationally. I mean, it'd be up there when you stack it, pound for pound.
I want to get to safety in a second, but is this your first time? Luke Wafel, USC signee, just walked in.
Can I just say he barely fit through the door? Can I just say that?
That's the point. Like so I want, like, both of your guys. I don't know if I've seen him a couple times in person. What's your initial take on just Luke Wafel? First time seeing him live, just walked in the door.
Thick bone, big. I mean, he's not the tallest kid here.
He
He's not
looked.
the heaviest kid here.
Is there a third Bosa brother?
I love that, because that's when Roach and I were at the Next One's event in Louisiana, like, he looked like that kind of kid, just completely rocked up, college ready. And this was before his senior season. He just, I don't know, he just looks the part of a guy that's going to have a monster week. So USC got a good one there. Safety. Can we look at the safety position here? You talked about Devin Jackson, some talented players. We had Charles Woodson Jr. Got a guy, Garyon Hobbs, going to announce a commitment this week. Take it however you want, Ivan.
Yeah, I mean, Garyon Hobbs, versatile second-level defender, two-way athlete out of Kentucky. I believe Notre Dame is lone four.
They're in there, yeah, they're in there, but Indiana is the school that I'd keep an eye on.
Indiana,
yeah,
in there as well for him. Sonar, I think he's got 8 interceptions over the past 2 years. Locates the football. I want to see how big, what he measures. Interested to see on that. So he's one, and then Torrey Pittman out of Nebraska, committed to the in-state Cornhuskers. A guy we've liked throughout the prospect. Another guy that does it on both sides. Really interested to see him in this setting in terms of coverage. Sometimes these safety prospects, when they're the big fish in the small pond, it's like, all right, man, we just want you to make sure no one gets behind and you're not giving up touchdowns. So when you can get them here at the Navy All-American Bowl and they have to understand some coverage responsibilities, they have to pass some things off, they have to match up with an Ahmad Hudson, they have to match up with Malik Howard, you can learn a lot. So those two, and then of course I think Devin Jackson's the bell at the ball when we talk about these safeties.
I wanted to ask you, Andrew, about Devin Jackson and how you think he maybe fits with like a Jet Washington in the same defense. Like how do their skill sets mesh?
I think they complement. Jet Washington to me, talking with Hudson Standish, who was at the All-American Bowl, and I wrote it, I think, on 24/7 Sports on Sunday. It's like, hey, mock draft ready. I mean, dude, this guy's 6'5". He's 215 pounds. He's going to eventually be able to carry 235 pounds if they want to go that route. It was funny because I was at the game on Saturday night, and I drive home. My wife's a huge Seahawks fan, and who's all over the TV screen? Nic Lennear making plays as a rookie, right? You remember all the buzz around him at the draft. It's like, okay, who's the closest thing to Nic Lennear in this class? Oh, it is Jet Washington. Again, the nephew of Kobe Bryant, could have played college basketball. He's tested exceptionally well. I thought his ability to cover, I thought, he hits like a heat-seeking missile. He's a guy that can do a little bit of everything. And if you really want to diagnose what is making Oregon successful under Dan Lanning, is like they play to their personnel. And I think you do a little bit of everything with Jet. I think you do a little bit of everything with Devin Jackson. Again, the big thing that stands out to me is Oregon is getting big dudes. Big people win, right? Big people beat small people. And at every single position, it's like they are finding the biggest guys possible. So that's what jumps out. And I can't wait till you guys see Devin Jackson when he walks through, because you're going to think he's a linebacker. But no, he reads and triggers like one of the top DBs in the country.
Remember Jeff Bossa? There's a lot of Jeff Bossa and kind of what I see in those two safeties, and I think we can safely assume and say that Dan Lanning has a type, right? When he's drawing up what his future defenses are going to look like.
Yeah. Andrew Evans, you are a former punter yourself. We got to show some love to the specialists, because we are not talking about just a couple guys from right down the road. We're just coming in to kick the ball around and punt. I mean, this is a great group though that you are actually excited about. So I think one of you even said, I don't want to spoil anything, but didn't you think one of them was going to be a potential freaks list candidate?
We got a heated battle. I have a spot saved on the freaks list for one specialist. Okay, Wade Register, Georgia signee. Saw him at the Under Armour game. I mean, dude, he started at running back for his high school, ran for 1,000 yards, played soccer. I was talking to him, and I'm like, hey, give me some data here. Didn't give me too much.
Appreciate
Lucas Tenbrock, punter here, now signed with Penn State. I don't know if he was released from his NI. I don't know if he went to the transfer portal. I don't know. He was going to Iowa State. Now he's going to Penn State. My man is 6'5", 220 pounds, and he's got a 147.7 in the discus. So these two are kind of battling it out. And hey, dude, punters matter. We saw Kirby Smart with the fake.
Yes.
In the quarterfinals. So yeah, fun group of specialists. And Indiana's leading scorer played in this game 3 years ago. And one of the top kickers in the transfer portal played in the game 3 years ago as well. So specialists are people.
When you need a specialist, you come to the Navy All-American Bowl. I think we're about to grab I think Brett Greenberg, our Alabama insider, is going to eventually pop over here, and we'll get Ben Wolk on for you Georgia fans here. But it's kind of weird because we've been doing this for a couple hours now. I think because of flight delays, a lot of these kids are coming in later. So it's been we're expecting a mad rush of players here. But we'll get those guys on.
I mean, what's your pick here? Do we want to go? Who do you want? I can go get them.
I texted Brett and I told him to come over, but he's not. Ben Wolk, you're jumping on. We're doing Georgia. We're going to talk Georgia because Brett basically put me on hold. Benjamin Wolk.
Gentlemen, how are we?
I'm doing great, man. We are at the Navy All-American Bowl. This fires me up. We're looking at the 2026 Georgia class. Talked about a couple guys. There's some underclassmen targets here. So just basically you just being here in San Antonio, what for the Georgia fans at home, what's your primary focus this week?
Got to be Joshua Sam Appel. I mean, 6'9", 340-pound offensive lineman from the state of Georgia.
We'll see if he's that big.
Yeah, we'll see when he gets here. No, you're right. He's not here yet. That was bad reporting on my end. But when you got a guy with that size and frame at that position in the state of Georgia, of course, he's going to be a top target for the Bulldogs. So interested to see how he looks compared to some of the nation's elite this week.
I want to look at this Georgia class. I mean, obviously there's no signees here, if I'm correct, right? No.
No.
Okay, no signees here. But man, what an outstanding group, top 10 class, one of the best in the country. But just your takeaway from everything they did this cycle, just big picture. I mean, successful?
I would say successful. I mean, when you just look at the raw ranking of it all, it probably doesn't look quite the status of some Georgia recruiting classes in the past. They maybe don't have the 5-star power in the class that they have in previous years. But I think the depth of what they did across the board, I don't really look at any position group in the 2026 cycle and say like that's a liability position group. I feel like they did a pretty good job stacking their class across the board. I mean, if we're talking the top heavy side of the class, like Valden Sohn, a former Navy All-American Bowl guy that was sensational last year when I saw him down here, and I didn't know a whole lot about him last year. So that's another thing about this week down at the Navy All-American Bowl is like you're going to end up running into guys that you don't necessarily know how good they are until you see them down here, and then they become, Georgia's highest ranked signee in the class.
I call him the Swedish Jalen Carter.
I love him, man. I had him on my show a couple of times, and he's got off the charts vibes. He's obviously a massive guy. He does. I'd have him on my show every single week.
If you like picture what you would think like a Swedish football player, like it's just, yep. You're like, this is what, like, I remember him last year, like in our room, like what's up, Andrew? I'm like,
what I love about him too is he is fully aware that he's not even scratching the surface of his capabilities. Like he's relatively new to football, all things considered, but you just look at all the tools that he has. And I think his mindset around understanding where he needs to develop and grow is going to take him a long way.
And obviously he's from Europe. Correct me if I'm wrong here. Georgia could get another European potentially this week.
They're involved with. I don't want to go out of my way. I was going to talk to you about this on air. He's maybe hesitating a little bit in whether he wants to do it this week. And Marvin Ingetsop. Oh, okay. Is that who you're referring to?
Okay. Yeah, you mentioned that. You mentioned that it may not happen this week. There's a lot of people that thinking he might commit. Now it's a little up in the air. So, hey, another reason to stay tuned on Saturday. I want to ask you about the class as a whole a little bit more, but not to go at Andrew Ivins for any rankings. But there's a guy, I mean, he's comfortable with it. That if there's a guy in here that you think outperforms the 3-star grade, who do you got?
I'm going to say 2. I think it's both the safeties that they've got from the state, Tyreek Green and Blake Stewart. I think Georgia's expecting them to play a role. They're going to attack the transfer portal and hope that they can build some experience at safety, but I think that they're probably going to need Tyreek Green and or Blake Stewart to have some kind of role as true freshmen. Not to say that I don't like the rankings that you have for them, of course. I think you did a great job. I just think that they're guys that could, have a role year one in Athens.
And because they're better than the other DBs they have?
Yeah, you could. I mean, look, I think both of them are just ball players. Like, it sounds so cliche and boring to say, but they both were exceptional on both sides of the ball. They are probably more built than some of the other defensive backs that they brought in the 2025 recruiting class. So I think they're probably just more ready-made to play right away than some of the guys that they'd brought in previous cycles.
How about from the top half of the class? Looking at those guys, I mean, I've seen Caden Harris a couple times. He's there in Tennessee. I know you're a fan of Craig Dandridge, the receiver. But who's the day one? I mean, we saw Talon Taylor play a lot this year as a true freshman. Like, who's the day one guy for Georgia next year?
Well, you did mention my infatuation with Craig Dandridge's game. I think that he's the best playmaker in the state of Georgia. He's slight of frame a little bit. So I'm always intrigued. How ready are you physically to play day one? But I think that just in terms of what Georgia's doing at receiver right now, they're probably going to be more high school centric than transfer portal centric as they've been the last couple of years. And so I think that Craig Dandridge is someone that can play right away. Caden Prothro is another one that I'm fascinated by. What can your early role be at Georgia? Because he's, that 6'6" range. Georgia isn't even describing him as a tight end. They're calling him like a flex end or something like that.
Reminds me of Deuce Robinson.
Yeah, I see that a lot. And Georgia loved him and coming out of high school a lot as well. And so I think, he's not going to be in line blocking early on. He's got a lot of development that he has to do in that area. But in terms of, you go look at, I think a third of his receptions in his high school career resulted in touchdowns. Now he's playing lower level state of Georgia high school football, but it's a guy that is a touchdown machine. I think that's probably not going to change a whole lot at the college level.
I mean, that's a stat that it doesn't matter where you're playing, who you're playing against. You're doing what you're supposed to do. How about an early look at 2027? Just kind of obviously a long way to go, but they got a top 10 class now. They got 6 commits at this point for Georgia. Just who jumps out when you're looking at Georgia's class in 27?
I mean, I'm intrigued by some of the 2 in-state guys. Kelsey Adams, the offensive tackle at Langston Hughes. I think you got a chance to see him last week as well. And then Noah Parker is sort of a lesser-known running back from South Georgia. Georgia obviously likes to dip its toe into the under-recruited South Georgia territory where it can get an opportunity. So those are 2 that stick out to me early. I think if I'm just being totally transparent about it, there's going to be a lot of changeover of that group that's in that 2027 class right now. A lot of out-of-state emphasis with guys that, quite frankly, probably haven't had a ton of financial conversations with Georgia up to this point. So I think there's probably a lot of change that still has to happen in that class.
It's fair. Appreciate it as always, my friend. I think we're going to try and get Brett Greenberg here, so you're good, man. You can get back to it. He's doing the dirty work, man, as Mike Roach calls him, third liner. Please don't fall on camera. Ivans, let's wrap up. I want to wrap up. I'm going to go back to, actually, we did all the commitments. I feel like this is just about time to call it quits, man. This was a long show. Any final thoughts, any final takeaways from the day?
Yeah. I think when you build out this roster, you overanalyze it and you're concerned that it's not good. And then I think we've had a fourth of the players walk through and it's like this group's pretty dang good. And there was a lot of guys where you hadn't seen them before. So Luke Wayfull, so Malachi Lee, and you get excited for what's going to come here over the next few days. And I think for a college football fan, it's easy to lose sight of the high school prep recruiting. And look, I get it, man. So much going on with the transfer portal. But, the guys that do it here usually have a ton of success. So excited about that.
I think my big thing is just I'm very happy that a lot of the guys that we invited early, and again, the guys that don't need to be here are still here, showing how that they're ready to compete and put in the work. And I don't know, credit to them because they don't need to be here. These guys are already making money on the side. Their focus does not need to be here, but they're still coming out and competing and putting in the work. And just fires me up, man. It's a really good group across the board. Just a bunch of great kids. And honestly, there's a bunch of guys we haven't even talked about and that are going to be here this week. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I don't know where Clara went, but we're going to need her to end the stream here shortly. We haven't found her.
MVP. Who's going to be the MVP?
Oh, that's a great question. You know what? I'm going to stick with. Hey, Colin. Colin, can you grab Clara when you get a second? Thanks. I want to. That's a good question. I'm gonna ride with the guy that I've been on for over a year now, and I'm gonna call it Briggs Cherry. I think he is going to put on a show. I think he's gonna have a great week, and that's gonna be my call. I think Louisville landed a terrific talent. I think he's polished, he's poised, he's ready for the moment. Ivans, who do you got?
Man, it was Coy Parrish 2 years ago. Last year was Keyshawn Henderson. I'm trying to think who was it before that. Dante Moore.
Oh, you said Parrish. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Dante.
I'm gonna go with one of these pass rushers. Give me Luke Wakefield.
It fires me up, dude. Yeah, Luke Wafel's a great call. There's a lot of guys, man, that just
Actually, I don't know these tackles, Sam Greer.
Sam was impressive, man. That was
I'll take all that back. I think it's going to be a wide receiver. I'm going to go with give me Caden Dixon.
I'll say Madden Williams just walked in the door. Caden Dixon Wyatt, he just makes plays. So if he ends up getting one or two big plays, wouldn't shock me in the slightest. Right now, you're going to make me go rogue and take a second player. What about, we just saw Brandon Finney making plays for Oregon. What if we see a corner or somebody make a bunch of plays? You know what? God, I can't do that. Jordan Thomas is a guy that I'm gonna stamp gets an interception before the end of the game on Saturday. That's going to be my pick. He's going to be one, but I'm still riding with Briggs Cherry as the MVP. Clara, we are wrapping it up here at the 2026 Navy All-American Bowl. Big shout out to Blair Angulo, Ben Wolk, and Mike Roach and everybody helping us out. But for Director of Scouting, Andrew Ivans, I am National Analyst Tom Loy. We will have a ton of coverage for you all week long. We're going to have VIP Scoop, more analysis from the man himself, Andrew Ivans. Thank you all for watching. Stay locked to 247sports.com.